Clerk, we have quorum. We have quorum, Clerk. You can proceed to call in the first order.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair.
Honorable members, it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome you to the second session of the Senate. It has indeed been a working recess with numerous activities running and a number of special sittings convened pursuant to Standing Order 33. I, however, trust that you have had a time to rest and reconnect with your families and constituents over the Christmas and New Year festivities. I take this early opportunity to thank each one of you individually and collectively for the commitment, enthusiasm, and the solid foundation that were established during the first session as part of the legacy of the Fourth Senate. I saw a resolute Senate that worked as one to execute its constitutional mandate. I commend you all and look forward to this commitment throughout the second session and the sessions to come. Honorable Senators, as we commence the second session, and as it has been the tradition at the commencement of the session, we are called upon by our constituents to play one of the fundamental roles of legislator, budget making, and as part of the budget framework and calendar, we will shortly receive and consider the budget policy statement, the division of revenue bill, the county allocation of revenue bill, and the county government's additional allocation bill and the cash disbursement schedule. Honorable Senators, you may walk in. As we receive and consider these physical documents, we must be cognizant of the challenges facing Kenyans, one of which is the high cost of living. Another challenge that we are facing and has dragged on from around August 2022 is drought and famine, among others. It will be irresponsible of the Senate not to take action. As national leaders and servants of the people, we must facilitate dialogue and institution of physical policy measures that address these challenges by channeling the resources that we have where they are most effective for efficient government services. Additionally, we have a duty to oversight the budget process and ensure that there is prudent public finance management, as the budget is critical in delivering the promises of devolution as housed in the Constitution of Kenya. Therefore, we must be vigilant to scrutinize the budget of the last financial year to determine the impact of resources allocated to service delivery and realization of the various devolved functions, and to scrutinize the current policy programs outlined in the budget policy statement that will be presented to this Senate. This will ensure that these are aligned to the devolved governance structure, economic development and recovery, and principles of inclusion, equity, and equality. I urge all honorable senators to be available to consider the aforesaid budget documents in order to approve this particular business within the required timelines for our counties to receive the necessary funding for critical projects and programs. Honorable senators, you may walk in. Honorable Senators, in the second session, we look forward to reporting by various select committees of the Senate on the activities and business referred to them for consideration. During the first session, 12 bills were published. Out of these, the County Government's Additional Allocations Bill, Senate Bills number 4 of 2022, was considered by both houses of Parliament and enacted into law. 3 bills have gone through the concurrence process contemplated under Article 110(3) of the Constitution and are now ready for the first reading. 4 other bills have since matured for second reading. The Senate Business Committee will schedule these bills in the order paper in the coming days. Another 4 bills are undergoing the concurrence process and will be scheduled in the order paper by the Senate Business Committee upon completion of this process. Other business transacted in the first session includes 2 petitions presented and referred to the relevant standing committees, as well as 40 motions, of which 36 were adopted. In addition, 115 statements on diverse issues were canvassed, of which 20 were issued under Standing Order 52-1, 89 pursuant to Standing Order 53-1, 4 under Standing Order 56-1A, and 2 statements under Standing Order 58. At the opportune time, Senators, the Senate Business Committee will publish a reporting schedule by select committees as required under Standing Order 56-1B for committee chairpersons to appraise the House on the above business and other activities relating to committees. Honorable Senators, I'm particularly excited and looking forward to this session, as this is when we will experience application of the knowledge and skills that we have been equipped with during the elaborate induction programs that have been carried out. The inductions began at the House level and are cascaded to each select committee. I take this opportunity to thank the Secretariat for the rich and tremendous programs that have been mounted for us. Our only response following the induction event is to get down to business. A good place to start would be from the resolutions arrived at during the induction program, and which were assigned to the relevant dockets for action. Allow me to use this platform to urge all those to whom the resolutions were directed to, including the Office of the Speaker, the Senate leadership, the Senate Business Committee, the Liaison Committee, and various select committees, to critically scrutinize them and institute measures for their implementation. It is only by so doing that we shall address the identified challenges and gaps and ultimately emerge stronger as a constitutional body. Honorable Senators, you may walk in. Honorable Senators, aside from plenary and committee business, and in keeping with its mandate of protecting the devolution and interests of counties and their governments, the Senate will participate in 2 major events in our annual calendar of events, namely the Devolution Conference and the Legislative Summit. These 2 events afford us not only a platform for the Senate to be heard, but also to interact with other key players in devolution, celebrate the gains and successes accomplished, reflect on the challenges encountered, and come up with concrete plans of action on the way forward. These events must not be talking shops, but an opportunity for the Senate to influence and change government policy as regards devolution. Our participation must translate to policy and legislative interventions. I look forward to this as preparations for these events begin. Honorable Senators, you may walk in, honorable Senators. Honorable Senators, Honorable Senators, as I conclude, I challenge this August House to move our discussions and considerations to issues beyond borders. We have a responsibility, through the ambit of parliamentary diplomacy, to discuss matters of global concern that are emerging in other parts of the world. For instance, I welcome the relevant committees to engage in the discourse on matters such as peace and conflict resolution in the African continent, economic recovery, growth, and how, as a country, we can leverage on the existing frameworks on trade and movement of goods across the continent, equipping a labor force for the future of work, strengthening Africa's food systems, African cities, and realizing the new urban agenda, amongst others. It will be interesting to bring out perspectives on how issues facing parts of the world entwine and impact us as a country. Finally, honorable senators, I impress upon each of us to rededicate ourselves to the execution of our constitutional mandate and to undertake the task ahead of us with utmost integrity and service to our great country as we strive to mold the legacy of the Fourth Senate. I thank you and wish all of us a fruitful session. Honorable Senators, also have a further communication. I would like to acknowledge the presence in the Speaker's Gallery this afternoon, a visiting delegation from the Parliament of Uganda. The delegation consists of the staff of the Hansard Department, who are on a 5-day attachment program with a counterpart department in the Senate from 13th to 17th February 2023. Honorable Senators, I request each member of the delegation to stand when called out so that they may be acknowledged as per the Senate tradition. Ms. Carol Amuleni, Assistant Editor of Hansard. Welcome. Mr. Stephen Leela, Assistant Editor of Hansard. Welcome. On behalf of the Senate, on my own behalf, I welcome the delegation and wish them well for the remainder of their visit. I thank you. Now, the majority to welcome the delegation from Uganda.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and also thanks for this chance to welcome our visitors, the visiting delegation that are on a working trip actually to the Parliament of Kenya, specifically the House of the Senate. I wish them well in their induction. It may benefit them to know that under the East African Community Protocol Speaker, the Kenyan Parliament has been granted the honors to host IAPI. That is the East African Parliamentary Institute. So this will be the home of all studies of parliamentary practice in the region. And therefore, they have made the right decision by deciding to work with the Parliament of Kenya to come and study. And even a more correct decision, Mr. Speaker, is by coming to the Senate. Parliament of Kenya has 2 houses, but I can say it without fear of any contradiction, Mr. Speaker, that this is the best place to learn. You learn a lot, interact with our staff. Some of the best brains that you can find in public service are actually found in the Parliament of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. I say this because I've worked with them for 5 years as their chair of staff welfare, and I've interacted very closely with them. So I know what I'm saying, their expertise, and all that they need to learn with regards to parliamentary practice. So to our visiting delegation, most welcome. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minority.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nataka kujiunga na wewe kwa kuweza kuwakaribisha ndugu zetu wa karibu sana, jirani zetu wa Uganda.
Leader, you need to ask yourself whether Swahili is the mode of communication in Uganda.
Yes.
Otherwise, the delegation may not hear the good words that you're saying.
Yes, Speaker, Ugandans speak Swahili, and we've been there before. We've been to their parliament. Kiswahili kitukuzwe. Bwana Spika, asante sana. Kwanza ni kuwashukuru ndugu zetu kutoka Uganda, na natumaini wanasikia tukiongea Kiswahili, na kwamba tunafurahia sana kama wageni wetu hapa katika bunge letu la Seneti. Najua wamekuja, wao ni wahandisi wa Hansard, na nina imani ya kwamba walioyaona hapa kote katika bunge la Senate ni kwamba hili ndio bunge la juu katika Kenya. Na tukiwa tuko hapa sisi huwa tunakuwa na mijadala tofauti tofauti, na najua nyinyi kazi yenu ni ile ya kuweka rekodi za mabunge kisawasawa, na nina imani ya kwamba yale mliojifundisha hapa ama mlioona hapa, yale mazuri mtayabeba, mtakwenda nayo nyumbani na mtaweza kuendeleza huko. Na sisi tumewafurahia sana kwa sababu mmekuja katika nchi yetu, tunawakaribisha sana. Lakini msimalize hizi shughuli zenu hapa Nairobi peke yake. Mkiwa mmepata nafasi, Wakenya wengi, ziko sehemu za Mombasa, ziko sehemu za Kilifi, kuna sehemu za Wamasai kule wanaishi, kwali kuzuri sana, Masai Mara, kuna kwali kwingine kama Samburu, kuna Wamasai pia. Mkienda sehemu zote za Kenya, mkitembea mtajionea vile Wakenya wanavyoishi. Kwa hiyo karibuni sana ndani ya Kenya, karibuni sana ndani ya bunge letu la Senate. Asante Bwana Spika.
Next order. Yes, what is the point order, Senator Boni?
Mr. Speaker, my gadget is not working. I had hoped that I capture your eye for attention to be allowed to make a comment. Can I, Mr. Speaker, sir?
Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, may I join you and my two colleagues who have spoken before me in welcoming the delegation from Uganda. And through you, Mr. Speaker, allow me to request them to pass our greetings to our colleagues in the Parliament of Uganda, and especially the colleagues in Parliament who ordinarily should have been colleagues in this House, but the colonial government carved 13 of our constituencies into Uganda, which should have been Kenyan constituencies. Mr. Speaker, my greetings to them. My second point, Mr. Speaker, is to also join you in welcoming colleagues back to the House. And as we do so, Mr. Speaker, I wanted to laud members in the first session. They stood out. In that very short time, Mr. Speaker, we need to congratulate ourselves that we were able to give our counties an additional allocation of revenue. In fact, my county in Kakamega received a whopping 892,970,000, Mr. Speaker. Also, we need to laud ourselves and congratulate ourselves, Mr. Speaker, for the fact that during that time, we were able to pass a very critical bill which has now been signed into law, the amendment of the IEBC Act, Mr. Speaker. And finally, but not least, we have sent a clear message through the deliberations of last session, Mr. Speaker. And now our MCS are finding it necessary to consult better, to consult smart, and to consult more with the governors so as to work together, rising from the proceedings of the impeachment motion of the governor of Meru. Mr. Speaker, finally, before I sit down, I wanted to request you, this is a very difficult day. We have lost one of our senior officers, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Wellington Namenge was a senior research officer who has worked with us, especially myself, for almost 20 years in this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he has left a wife, Evelyn. I wanted to send my condolences to her. His son, Morgan, his daughter, Fannis, his son, Wesley, and his daughter Daisy. And with your permission, so that members of staff don't think we carry them along, we don't carry them along, maybe could you accept, Mr. Speaker, to allow the House, as we would do if it was a member of the Senate who had passed on, we request that the House gives them 1 minute of silence, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable members, may we rise for 1 minute in honor of our departed officer. Thank you. You may be seated. Next order, clerk. Honorable Senators, there is a supplementary order paper. So kindly switch to that. That is the one that we're going to use to prosecute the day's business.
Order number 3, messages.
Honorable Senators, I did receive a message from His Excellency the President on the nomination of Ms. Emily Mwende Mwaita, Mr. John Kioli, Ms. Omar, and Dr. George Odera Outa for appointment to the National Climate Change Council. Honorable Senators, I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 47, I received a message from His Excellency Honorable William RUTO, PhD, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, on the nomination of persons for appointment to the National Climate Council. The message was transmitted to the Senate via the letter reference SH/NA/1 into brackets 22, dated 8th December 2022, by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. Pursuant to Standing Order 47-2 of the Senate, I shall now report the message to the Senate. It is notified that His Excellency Honorable Dr. William Samoei Ruto, PhD, CGH, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, has, pursuant to Section 7.1 of the Climate Change Act, number 11 of 2016, and upon the recommendation of the relevant bodies, exercise the constitutional prerogative vested in the head of state and government and cause nomination to the membership of the National Climate Change Council. In that regard, and pursuant to Section 7.4 of the Climate Change Act, number 11 of 2016, and in accordance with the procedure set out in Section 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act number 3 of 2011, I'm hereby pleased to convey His Excellency the President's nomination of 1, Ms. Emily Mwende Waita; 2, Mr. John Kioli; 3, Ms. Omar; and 4, Dr. George Odera Outa, to be members of the National Climate Change Council pursuant to Section 7.2 G, H, and I of the Climate Change Act 2016, respectively. To aid the August House in the consideration approval process, we have the pleasure of enclosing herewith the letters of recommendation from the relevant bodies, Certificate of Presidential Nomination number 9 of 2022, and the curriculum vitae of each nominee. Accordingly, and by way of this letter, you are most kindly requested to expeditiously consider the nominees so as to enable His Excellency the President constitute the Council. Honorable Senator, you may walk in. Honorable Senators, Section 5 of the Climate Change Act establishes the National Climate Change Council. Section 7.2 of the Act provides that members to the Council shall be A, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for environment and climate change affairs, B, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for economic planning, C, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for the National Treasury, D, the Cabinet Secretary responsible for energy, and E, the Chairperson of the Council of Governors, F, a representative of the private sector nominated by the body representing the largest number of institutions in the private sector, G, a representative of the civil society nominated by the most representative registered national umbrella associations of civil societies working on climate change, H, a representative of the marginalized community within the meaning of Article 260 of our Constitution, who has knowledge and experience in matters relating to indigenous knowledge, and I, a representative of the academia nominated by the Commission for University Education. 4, Section 7.4 of the Climate Change Act states the names of persons nominated for appointment under subsection 2, F, G, and H, and I shall be submitted to Parliament for approval. Honorable Senators, kindly come in. Honorable Senators, Standing Order number 771 of the Senate Standing Orders provides that upon receipt of notification of nomination for appointment to a public office required to be approved by the Senate under the Constitution or any other legislation, the nomination shall stand committed to the relevant standing committee for consideration. As was agreed and executed during previous approvals for such nominations, such as the position of the Inspector General of National Police Service, and indeed previous nominees to the Council, the message from His Excellency the President, together with the curriculum vitae of the nominees, stands committed to the relevant committee, and in this case, the Standing Committee on Land, Environment, and Natural Resources for approval and hearing. The committee will hold the approval hearing jointly with the Departmental Committee on Environment, Forestry and Mining of the National Assembly, in accordance with the provisions of Climate Change Act and the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act and the Standing Orders of the Houses of Parliament. Honorable Senators, as such, therefore, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides that, in that regard, and pursuant to Section 7.4 of the Climate Change Act, Honorable Senator, as such, therefore, Section 8 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act provides that, 1, unless otherwise provided in any law, a committee shall consider nomination and table its report in the relevant House for debate and decision within 14 days from the date on which the notification of nomination was given accordance with Section 5. 2, at the conclusion of the approval hearing, the committee shall prepare its report on the suitability of the candidate to be appointed to the office to which the candidate has been nominated, and shall include in the report such recommendations as the committee may consider necessary. In this regard, Honorable Senators, the period on the matter that is now before Parliament starts running upon the Speakers of the Houses of Parliament committing the names of the nominees to the relevant committees in the Senate and in the National Assembly. Standing Order 230, joint sittings of corresponding committees of the Senate and the National Assembly of the Senate standing orders shall apply during the approval hearing. I urge the committee to expeditiously consider the matter and to table the report thereon within the stipulated timelines. I thank you, Honorable Senators. Next order, Clerk. Minority and Majority Leader, acquaint yourself with the standing orders, please. Honorable Senators, a further message from His Excellency. I wish to report to the Senate that pursuant to Standing Order 47, I received a message from His Excellency Honorable William RUTO, PhD, CGH, President of the Republic of Kenya and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, on the nomination of Dr. Susan Chemtai Koech to the position of Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. The message was transmitted to the Senate via the letter reference OP/CAB.26/4A Volume 1/63 dated 25th January 2023 by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service. Pursuant to Standing Order 47-2 of the Senate, I shall now report the message to the Senate. It is most graciously notified that His Excellency Honorable William Samoei Ruto, PhD, CGH, President and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenya Defense Forces, has, in exercise of the constitutional prerogative vested in the head of state and government, caused a nomination to the position of Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. In this regard, and pursuant to Section 13B of the Central Bank of Kenya Act, Cap 491 of the laws of Kenya, and the procedure set out in Sections 3 and 5 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act, number 33 of 2011, we submit to both Houses of Parliament the presidential nomination of Dr. Susan Chemtai Koech for appointment as the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. To aid the August House in its consideration and approval processes, we have the pleasure to forward herewith the certificate of presidential nomination, together with the nominees' CVs and testimonials, as well as a report of the Public Service Commission on the recruitment of the Deputy Governor of the Central Bank of Kenya. Accordingly, and by way of this letter, you are most likely requested to consider His Excellency's nominee on a priority basis. Honorable Senators, Section 13B1 of the Central Bank of Kenya Act provides, and I quote, "There shall be 2 deputy governors who shall be appointed by the President through a transparent and competitive process and with approval of Parliament." In relation to this Section 3 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act states that an appointment under the Constitution or any other law for which the approval of Parliament is required shall not be made unless the appointment is approved or deemed to have been approved by Parliament in accordance with this Act. Honorable Senators, Standing Order number 771 of the Senate Standing Orders provides that upon receipt of a notification of nomination for appointment to a public office required to be approved by the Senate under the Constitution or any other legislation, the nomination shall stand committed to the relevant standing committees for consideration. As was agreed and executed during previous approvals for nominations, such as the position of the Inspector General of the National Police Service, the message from His Excellency the President, together with the CVs of the nominee, stand committed to the relevant committee, and in this case, the Standing Committee on Finance and Budget for approval hearing. The committee will hold the approval hearing jointly with the Departmental Committee on Finance, Planning and Trade of the National Assembly in accordance with the provisions of Central Bank of Kenya Act and Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act and the Standing Orders of Houses of Parliament. Honorable Senators, Section 8 of the same Act provides, 1, unless otherwise provided in any law, a committee shall consider nomination and table its report in the relevant House for debate and decision within 14 days from the date on which the notification of nomination was given in accordance with Section 5. 2, at the conclusion of an approval hearing, the committee shall prepare its report on the suitability of the candidate to be appointed to the office to which the candidate has been nominated and shall include in the report such recommendations as the committee may consider necessary. In this regard, honorable senators, the period on the matter that is now before Parliament starts running upon speakers of the Houses of Parliament committing the name of the nominee to the relevant committees in the Senate and in the National Assembly. Standing Order 230, joint sittings of corresponding committees of the Senate and the National Assembly shall apply during the approval hearing. I urge the committee to expeditiously consider this matter and to table a report therein within the stipulated timelines. I thank you, honorable senators. What is your point of order, Senator Tabitha?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I do stand seeking your guidance on the Speaker's rule number 5, in regards to the dress code, and I need to seek your advice if Senator Gloria is appropriately dressed for the House. Thank you.
What is your point of order, minority?
Bwana Spika, hoja yangu ya nidhamu ni kwamba katika sheria zile za hapa ndani kama standing orders yetu ya kwanza na pia vile vile katika zile sheria ambazo ni za Speaker, tunatambua ya kwamba ni lazima mtu awe amejivaa kisawasawa. Hatuwezi kuingilia katika maisha mtu bila anavyotaka kuvaa. Lakini katika hili bunge letu la Senate,
maybe
Bwana Speaker,
minority leader, just have your seat. I will let you have your day. Before we even allow the minority leader to say something, I'm looking at Rule 5, and I want to see how it's admissible in this regard, Senator Tabitha. Maybe you guide us, you explain to us how Rule 5 is relevant in this regard. What is inappropriate with Senator Gloria, so that we take it up from there?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. One, it clearly states in the Speaker's rules on our dress code, both for the male gender and for the female gender. As a woman and as a senator, I find it very uncomfortable, very inappropriate for our colleague, Senator Gloria, to step in and, you don't understand if she's on the normal woman cycle or it is faking it, and it is so indecent because these are natural things that as women we go through. Our society, our culture as women requires privacy. So it disturbs me, one as a woman, on what do we indicate out there for our younger generation that looks upon us on how we dress as leaders in this house. What kind of picture are we portraying to the young leaders? Yes, we understand during these moments, maybe our young generations go through a lot of things, but there is a better way as a leader to bring this out. That mode of communication, Mr. Speaker, it's uncomfortable.
What is out of order?
What is out of order?
Senator Gloria's dressing. The chair would wish to know, what is this that is out of order about Senator Gloria's dressing? I don't want to do guesswork.
Senator Gloria, Mr. Speaker, why it is touching me, because as a woman, there are things that we do not discuss in public. But because the House requires me to put it is that our colleague, Senator Gloria, is on either she's on a cycle or not, but it is indecent. It is not correct. And the way she's also moving in and out of the house, you know, it is so indecent. It is not a good conduct, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Tabitha, just stay there. You know the chair is in glasses, and you may not catch the finer details of what you're talking. Are you saying that the dress code is transparent? They are revealing? Because I can see she's in a suit. What's wrong with her suit?
I would request that, Mr. Speaker, you ask Senator Gloria to just step in front of you, and you'll be able to see how her dress is very messed up, which is not decent.
Senator Minority, it's okay. Minority Leader, what is your point of order?
Bwana Spika, kile Kiswahili safi ni kwamba mwanamke akiwa vile huwa anamwaga damu na hatakikani hata kidogo kuonyesha umati wa watu, ama ndugu zangu hawa wanaume wako na mabibi zao na madada zao wa heshima. Saa hizi bibi ya Kalwale anaangalia na anaona kama mheshimiwa ameingia hapa akiwa anavuja damu kutoka sehemu zake za siri. Je, hii ni haki ndani ya hili bunge la Senate?
I now get it. Yes, well, Senator Enoch.
No, it's okay. The Speaker, respect should be given where respect is due. But in circumstances where respect is not due, then we do not ascribe respect. The Speaker, this is a house of respect. And there are things that should never be allowed to happen in the Senate of the Republic of Kenya. Mr. Speaker, some things must just be said as they are. We have ladies here. We have wives. We have daughters. They go through these cycles. But when they go through these cycles, it's a matter to be managed personally without exposing it to other people. What Senator Gloria has done to this house today is disgrace. It's a lot of shame on this house, the Speaker. I invite you, the Speaker, if you consider, to invoke Standing Order number 123, if you consider. The Speaker, this must not be allowed to happen. Whatever the cause, whatever it is that's happening, it will never be allowed to happen.
Senator Gloria, what is the point of order?
Mr. Speaker, point of order. I think I have I'm dressed as per the standing orders. I'm covered, I have a suit, I have collars. I'm just short of a tie. I'm very disappointed. I'm actually more disappointed because the point of order that is being raised to try and attack an accident that is natural, because I have stained my clothes. And at the end of the day, I just want to know, while we are discussing this issue that is not even in the order paper, is it because senators are not women who have periods? I want to know, because then maybe I shouldn't be in this house because I have periods, Mr. Speaker. And on my way here, I actually stained my dress. So, and this is the period stigma, Mr. Speaker. This is the period stigma that is making our girls kill themselves. We have a girl who killed herself because of the same issue that I'm going through. And now I understand why. Because it is the women who actually are trying to make this a crime. Because maybe it's Valentine's Day. Because maybe Valentine's Day we are not supposed to have our periods. I am shocked that someone can stand here and say that the house has been disgraced because a woman has had her period. So women are not supposed to be in the Senate because we have periods. I don't understand. I'm in trousers. I've covered my... Honestly, the most someone can do is come to me and tell me, I'm sorry, are you having period cramps? Shall I give you painkillers? But instead, I am actually being castigated for having my period. So what we need to now talk about is, do women belong in the Senate? Because to try and pretend that women do not have periods because they are in the Senate, this is a very natural thing, and I'm very embarrassed and I'm very, very upset, Mr. Speaker. Protect me.
Yes, Senator Ledama.
Mr. Speaker, someone once said that as leaders, we should be judged by the content of our speech. It is quite evident that the distinguished senator is picketing. If you hear her sentences or her words, she's actually raising something. She's not on her menstrual cycle. It is quite clear that from what she's trying to share with the rest of the world is that she's picketing. And Mr. Speaker, we see this thing in social media, we see it in TikToks, we see it all over. We're not blind and we're not stupid. What is happening is this. We need to ask ourselves, should we be having that debate today? Should we be focusing on trying to constitute the House? If it is an important matter that needs to be discussed, I would like to beseech you, Mr. Speaker, that you direct the senator to bring a motion so that we can speak about it. But to attempt to disrupt the House, you know, the distinguished senator, and I'll be very respectful, I will call her distinguished senator, has been walking up and down, up and down. All of us are looking. If indeed, Mr. Speaker, she's being honest, and she's not being honest in this case, I think if any mature person, when they realize that they are going through something which, culturally, it's something which is taboo to be discussed, she would have gone to the bathroom, she would have covered herself, and even the other distinguished senators who are from the female gender here would have given her something to wear. But they know that she's picketing. So, Mr. Speaker, I would like to request you that you save this House so that men and women who sit in this House can be good example to the millions of Kenyans that we represent. So, Mr. Speaker, I really beseech you that you rule the distinguished nominated senator out of order. And if she wants to picket, picketing is outside. Every so often, when we raise matters outside this House, we are told you are the senators. Go to the Senate and pass laws. Why are we then now coming in to reduce ourselves to demonstrators on the floor of the House? So, Mr. Speaker, this is very discouraging. And I request that you rule her completely out of order.
Senator Muma.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Whatever is going on, I think Gloria has achieved to get the Senate to discuss something that is pertinent. The manner in which she may have done it may be not acceptable to the senators, but periods are a natural process that women go through in this country. Mr. Speaker, there are many girls who cannot access pads. And there are many girls who get into the situation that Gloria has modeled today in the Senate. And what happens is that they get shamed. Many of them have dropped out of school. Mr. Speaker, Gloria may have done it in the most glory manner to you people or to us as a Senate, but I plead that we rule that Gloria possibly brings a substantive motion that can enable us in this country to discuss issues that we call taboo, issues that we call shame, but issues that affect millions of girls in this country who need support from us. So even as we rule, I will plead that you look at the bigger picture than at the offending aspects of Gloria or the person who is bringing the issue. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Senators. Indeed, menstrual cycle is a natural act. However, there is a behavior that a woman is expected to uphold whenever they're going through that cycle period. Senator Gloria, as you have said that you are at that period, maybe 4 or 5 of our lady senators are in that period too, but they're not showing it, meaning they have taken the proper steps to deal with it. So having period is never a crime. How to handle those periods is where we begin to differ. Indeed, if you read the Bible and even the Quran, if a woman is going through her periods, they're not even allowed to touch the Bible or the Quran. So you cannot say that being discriminated against. So Senator Gloria, I sympathize with you that you're going through the natural act of menstruation. You have stained your wonderful suit. I'm not asking you to leave because you're out of order, but I'm asking you to leave so that you go change and come back with a cloth that is not stained. We appreciate you. Kindly proceed to go change and come back to the chambers. Next order.
Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers.
What is the point of order? Yes, Senator Kajua.
Can you, thank you. Mr. Speaker, what a way to start a session. But my point of order is based on the traditions, customs of Parliament, which, Mr. Speaker, you are very well versed with. On the first day of a session, the main business is constitution of the Senate Business Committee, which then processes the business that comes before the House. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate that the messages that you read are in the standing orders. There's a requirement that they be read at the first instance when the Senate sits. But the next order that we are going into, which is laying of papers, is neither urgent nor critical. And Mr. Speaker, even though some of the papers that the majority leader is about to lay are things that we should have done before, I wanted to get your guidance, because in the absence of a Senate Business Committee, because as we speak, we don't have a Senate Business Committee. It died with the last session. Would it be in order for this House to process business in the form of papers or any other subsequent order? Because what we have done, Mr. Speaker, this first session, the first day of the first session, is usually 2 or 3 minutes. It's usually 2 or 3 minutes. It's just to allow the SBC to be put in place. And then the SBC then can schedule. The SBC can agree on what should be in the order paper. So, Mr. Speaker, the papers, and Mr. Speaker, I beg for your protection, because...
Senator, be heard in silence, please. If you have an issue, you can make the intervention through the system, and I'll pick it up from here.
Because, honorable members, this is our first substantive...
What is your point of order, Senator Sifuna?
But I'm on a point of order. I'm on a point of order.
Yeah, he's on a point of order.
Disgust visually. I'm just disgusted.
Oh, then have your seat. Proceed, Senator Kajua.
So, Mr. Speaker...
Have your seat.
Mr. Speaker, for avoidance of doubt, I'm rising on order number 43. Order number 43, as read with
Can the senator be heard in silence, please?
Mr. Speaker,
the senator is on a point of order. Can he be heard in
standing
silence?
order number 43, as read alongside standing order number 190. And Mr. Speaker, the manner in which we begin a session will determine and dictate how this House is going to run for the next one session. And Mr. Speaker, I'm honestly fairly disappointed that on the first day of the first session, instead of focusing on the critical business of constituting the Senate Business Committee, we have veered off into issues that can best be prosecuted using other tools that are available to us as legislators. So, Mr. Speaker, I beg that we stand down the papers that are to be tabled. It's not that those papers are harmful, but we might put in place a dangerous precedent where this House considers business when the Senate Business Committee has not been established. Mr. Speaker, I beg your guidance.
Senator Kajwang or Senator Aaron?
I don't know, Mr. Speaker, thank you. I don't know if my colleague Senator Kajwang has the same order paper, the supplementary one that has just been circulated. Because as per the order paper, once you finish listing the messages, we moved to petitions. And immediately after petitions, we moved to papers, which I guess is what is subject to his protestations. If you go to the appendix of the order paper, Mr. Speaker, and read through these papers that are being laid, I don't think they fall under the ambit of what you'd call substantive business. These are ordinary reports that we receive in the Senate. And in any case, Mr. Speaker, there'll be a scheduled time for either in regards to number 2, the report to be substantially considered, or in number 1, the same to actually find its way to a committee where he's a member. So I do not think this falls under the ambit of what you'd consider to be substantive business of Parliament. If it was a motion, if it was a piece of legislation that you want to process, then I'd be concerned just like you. But I'd wish to convince my brother, Senator Kajwang, that while his warning may be good for the order of processing business in this House, on this particular matter, Mr. Speaker, I don't think there's anything for him to be greatly or gravely concerned about, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you. Honorable Senator Kajwang, on your point of order. Indeed, the papers that are supposed to be laid today, what is going to happen today is laying of the papers. It is upon the SCBC, after we have constituted it, to prioritize for discussion and debate and committing of the same to the committees. And therefore, I don't see what prejudice that we're going to suffer as a House by laying procedurally of these papers. The substantive business that is supposed to be carried on these papers that are going to be laid in today here is going to be determined by Senate Business Committee. And therefore, I do not see how we're going to suffer damage or any prejudice as a House if we allow today to lay the papers, just laying the papers. So kindly, let's proceed to lay the papers. Immediately we constitute the SBC, then it will be upon SBC looking at the papers to draw substantive business out of the papers that have been laid here procedurally. Thank you. Sid.
Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, the 14th of February, 2023. Number 1, the County Government Additional Allocation Cash Disbursement Schedule for financial year 2022-2023. Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, 14th February, 2023.
What is your point of order, Senator Eddie Okech?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be quick. Under the Speaker's rules, I invite your attention to guide the House whether Senator Karen Nyamu is properly dressed. And Mr. Speaker, I am really getting concerned with the kind of leadership that the majority side is showing this House. We are degenerating to really watering down the sense of parliament. And I beseech the majority leader as well as the majority whip to really have a conversation with your members. It's very embarrassing what we are seeing in this House.
Senator Eddie, kindly quote the rule that has been breached and specifically
Rule number
tell us the breach.
and rule number 5, Senator Karen Nyamu is not properly dressed. She has entered this House with sleeveless dress. And Mr. Speaker, you can rule whether that is appropriate. But my advice and my plea is to the majority side to take Kenyans seriously. We have been elected into this House to bring honor to the people of Kenya. It is getting enough in this House.
Senator Chirange. Senator Mundigi, if it's related to that point of order.
Katika Senate tuko watu 67. Nataka kukosoa Senator, sio mambo ya Kenya Kwanza, ni mambo ya mtu kivyake. Kwa hiyo nataka nikukosoe, kama mtu amevaa mbaya, sio Senator wote wa Kenya Kwanza wamevaa mbaya.
Can the senator be heard in silence, please? Thank you. Now,
hiyo ni ukweli kwa sababu amesema yeye angesema Nyamu.
Senator, can you have a seat, please? Honorable Senator, can you have your seat? Order, senators, order. Order. Order, senators. Order, senators. Senator Mundigi. Senator Mundigi. Senator Mundigi, can you have your seat? Senator Mundigi. Honorable senators. Honorable senators, the Senate leadership has taken its time to take you through various inductions. I'm shocked. That whatever, can we be heard in silence? Can the chair be heard in silence? Senator Sifuna, you're out of order. You continue, I throw you out of the chambers. Senator Sifuna, kindly leave the chamber now. Now. Honorable senators, this is a house of integrity and decorum. Our debate is based on our standing orders, on how we should debate, on how we should carry ourselves, on how we should dress. After a few months of sitting in these chambers, I expect us to do better. Just like Senator Kajwanga said, what a way to start the second session. the way we've started our proceedings today, it's like we've just been sworn in, and all of us are new. Every now and then, you talk about being respected. You need to respect yourselves first. If you have a point of order, there's a way in this house how you can prosecute your point of order. Shouting at each other is a disorderly conduct as per standing orders. Senator Mundigi, you've come of age. When the chair is standing, you freeze those seats. I was on my feet while you're busy yelling, throwing your hands in the air. That is a disorderly conduct, which will not be tolerated. As per Senator Nyamu, I'm going to read the Speaker's Rules number 5 for clarity. Senators are required not to enter the chamber, lounge, or dining room without being properly dressed. This means that a male senator will be dressed in a coat, collar, tie, long trousers, socks and shoes or service uniform, religious attire, or such other decent dressing as may be approved by the Speaker from time to time. And once the Speaker approved any dress code, it's normally communicated beforehand. An equivalent standard shall apply in respect of women senators who may also wear kitenge or such other African attire. Senator Nyamu, I'm afraid you don't fit the bill. And I'm going to ask you to leave the chambers, you go properly, get properly dressed, and come back to the chamber.
Bwana Speaker.
Senator Nyamu, I've already ruled. Kindly abide by the ruling. Before you proceed, Minority Leader, as for Senator Sifuna, he will remain out of these chambers for the remainder of today's sitting. He may resume tomorrow.
Bwana Speaker, hatupingi uamuzi uliotoa ya kwamba Senator Sifuna atoke nje kwa sababu amejibizana na wewe. Mimi nataka kusema kitu kimoja. Aliyeanza hakutolewa. Na yeye amefanya mara mbili vitendo hivyo akiwa hapa ndani. Ametoka pale ameketi, akaja hapa akasema aliyosema na ukamwambia kaa chini. Hakukaa. Ameenda kule, akajaribu kuketi, ulipoendelea kuongea, akarudi mara ya pili hapa, na akaendelea kujibizana na wewe. Bwana Speaker, mara ya tatu amejibizana na upande huu kwa sababu alikuwa anamwambia sikiza amri ya Speaker. Kama ni wachezaji mpira, wote wawili wamefanya makosa, ukipeana kadi huku ya nyekundu, unapeana kadi huku nyekundu. Pia unawaambia wote wawili watoke nje. Hiyo ndo haki itaonekana imetendeka. Sipingi uamuzi uliofanya, lakini nasema ya kwamba hata huyo aliyeanzisha fujo hii mpaka yule seneta akatolewa, tusionyeshe kwamba kutakuwa na kama ubaguzi wa aina yoyote. Na mimi kama bado ninaongea, seneta tafadhali, kiongozi mwenzangu, ukiongea siwezi kujibisha. Nitanyamaza mpaka wakati wangu ufike. Bwana Speaker, kwa hisani yako na ninajua sheria inauma pande wote mbili. Yule kwanza amefanya makosa ya ajabu sana. Ungekuwa mara ya kwanza alipokuwa kijibishana na wewe, ungekuwa umemtolea kadi nyekundu aende nje. Sasa inaonekana vibaya ya kwamba sasa umelemea upande huu na upande huu umewapa afueni. Na aliyeanza hii fujo yote, watu wote wakiona, hata Wakenya wote walioko wameona, ni yule mheshimiwa wa Embu. Tafadhali Bwana Spika, ninakuomba yule pia adhabu kama ile uliotupatia sisi kwa upande walio wachache ipatie pia kwa wale walio wengi. Asante sana.
Senator Aaron.
Mr. Speaker, I completely agree with the leader of minority. Unfortunately, the picture he's painting, if it were as he has explained, then I would agree with him. Unfortunately, that is not what happened in this chamber, Mr. Speaker. When Senator Mundigi rose to speak, the minority side was actually heckling him. And it was in that heckling and the noise that was being made that he missed your instructions. Otherwise, you know very well, Mr. Speaker, that Senator Mundigi is extremely respectful. And any time you as a speaker has guided him on what to do, he has always respected you. The situation is such that when he was speaking, Senator Olekina, Senator Eddie were engaging him in a shouting match, and therefore he missed on the fact that you are actually on your feet. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this is why I agree with the verdict on Sifuna. I agree with the verdict on Sifuna. Even me, the day I will directly engage you as the Speaker of this House, Mr. Speaker, please throw me out for as long as is possible by law, Mr. Speaker. Because the Speaker is a symbol of authority in this House. If Senator Mundigi had stood here and you had told him sit down and he engaged you and told you, Mr. Speaker, I'm not going to sit down, please throw him out even for a month. But that is not what he did. He may have not heard you clearly. That's why he continued engaging with this side. But paint a situation where you as a senator want to challenge the authority of the speaker seated there and engage him in a shouting match without being given the opportunity to speak. I don't think there is any debate for that particular matter, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I agree with your verdict, but the fact remains that Senator Mundigi did not contravene any of your guidance, did not shout back at you, was respectful to the speaker, unlike our colleague, Senator Sifuna.
What is your point of order, Senator Enoch?
Mr. Speaker, you know there is a way that we can be borne out by the records of this House. I will begin by saying that I will be the last person to engage with the Speaker in a manner that I've seen some senators engage with the Speaker. The dignity of this House must be retained at all costs, all the time. Mr. Speaker, if my recollection serves me right, and I know it does, Senator Mundigi is my friend, he is my neighbor, he is my vice chair in the Committee of Agriculture. I respect him. But as Speaker, what Senator Mundigi did on the floor today is one thing that should never be allowed to happen. Running up and about the hill, exchanging with everyone and throwing up arms. And in fact, that is what provoked Senator Sifuna to demand of him to respect the chair. That's exactly what happened, Mr. Speaker. That Senator Sifuna was actually disgusted that Senator Mundigi is disrespecting the Speaker and throwing up arms against other senators. For that action, which I don't support any senator to engage the Speaker in that manner. For that reason, the Senator Sifuna was asked to leave and he left respectively. The Speaker, I want to beg of you, so that you also send the right message in this House. This is the beginning of a new session, and we should never tolerate this kind of behavior in this House. So, Speaker, I don't direct you, I just plead for purposes of you being seen to be fair, Mr. Mudigi, the same fate that has befallen Senator Sifuna should befall Senator Mudigi. I thank you.
Senators, I think we need to dispense of this point of order so that we proceed on more serious matters. Honorable Senators, for the few months I have presided over this House, if you noticed, I've been very lenient and patient, to the extent that some of you have developed a habit of engaging the chair. Now, I'm going to make it very clear in this second session that the business of the House is going to be conducted strictly by our standing orders. Now, I'm going to give you the difference between the acts of Senator Mundigi and the acts of Senator Sifuna, and why I chose to send away Senator Sifuna and not Senator or both of them out. Senator Sifuna engaged the chair directly. You cannot do that. And if you noticed, for the few months we've been here, both sides sometimes engage each other. And I call for order, and you calm down. I don't throw you out. But the moment you go beyond engaging your colleagues and engage the chair, then certainly that is a line that will not allow you to cross. Senator Mundigi did not engage me directly. He was engaging the colleagues. He was shouting just like you are shouting. If I'm to send Senator Mundigi out, I'll send 5 of you from this side. And I don't think that's a proper way to handle business. So, honorable senators, let us prosecute our business with dignity and decorum. It is extremely painful for me to ask a senator to leave the chambers. Senator Sifuna is not an individual. He's here for and on behalf of the people of Nairobi, millions of people. Sending him out means shutting out millions of Nairobians. It is that painful. And that's why for the few months I've been with you, I've really exercised restraint, not wanting to throw any one of you. But members, do not take that as a weakness of the chair. Don't. I will always exercise my discretion with a lot of restraint, but also I expect you to behave in a manner as stipulated in our standing orders. So let the matter rest there. Next order, please. Majority, you had not completed here.
In conclusion, Mr. Speaker, sir, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the Senate today, Tuesday, the 14th of February, 2023. This is a report of the Parliamentary Service Commission on the nomination of the Honorable Senator Johnston Muthama for appointment as a non-member of the Parliament Commissioner to the Parliamentary Service Commission. Mr. Speaker, I beg to lay.
Honorable Senators, as you may have noted, Senator Joyce Chepkoech Korir MP, Senator Majority Leader, has tabled the report of the Parliamentary Service Commission on the approval for appointment of Honorable Johnston Muthama to the position of male non-member commissioner of the Parliamentary Service Commission. The commission of the Parliamentary Service Commission, the composition of the Parliamentary Service Commission is detailed in Article 127 of the Constitution of Kenya. Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution provides that the composition of the Commission shall include one man and one woman appointed by Parliament from among persons who are experienced in public affairs but are not members of Parliament. Honorable Senators, public appointments such as these must be approved by Parliament as provided in Article 127(2)(d) of the Constitution and Section 3 of the Public Appointments Parliamentary Approval Act. Further, Standing Order 77 of the Senate Standing Orders provide the procedure for approval hearing by the Select Committee. From the foregoing, this matter stands committed to the Standing Committee on Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights for consideration. Pursuant to Section 8(1) of the said Act and Standing Order 773, the committee has 14 days from today to consider this matter and report to the Senate on the suitability of the candidate for appointment to the Parliamentary Service Commission. I thank you, Honorable Senators. Next, Order Clerk.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that pursuant to Standing Order number 190 and 199(3), the Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to Standing Order number 191 shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Ali Roba. 2, Senator Veronica Maina. 3, Senator Wakili Hilary Sigei. 4, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda. 5, Senator Agnes Kavindu Mudhama. 6, Senator Mwinyi Haji Mohamed Faki. 7, Senator Eddie Watenya Sifuna. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Leader, the second, right? Who is the second of the motion? Oh, it's a notice. Oh, thank you. Senator Orango.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising on a point of order 255 that prescribes the sitting arrangements in the House. I seek your indulgence to advise one of my good friends, Senator Kamau Githuku, who is a senator for Lamu. Is he in order to sit on that side, owing to the fact that the Jubilee Party is now in Kenya Kwanza, and we sit on this side? Kindly, Mr. Speaker, advise.
Senator Morango, if you read the standing order that you just quoted, there are certain leadership positions that must take their rightful positions. Otherwise, another senator can sit. It's free sitting. Let's proceed.
Order number 7, statements. Order number 8, motion. Approval of senators to serve in the Senate Business Committee.
Majority Leader.
Are you seconding? Okay. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion, that pursuant to Standing Order number 190 and 199(3), the Senate approves the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who pursuant to Standing Order number 191 shall be the chairperson of the committee, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Ali Roba, Senator Veronica Maina, Senator Hilary Sigei, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda. 5, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama. 6, Senator Munyihaji Mohamed Faki. 7, Senator Edwin Watenya Sifuna. Mr. Speaker, as had previously been observed, I think, by Senator Kajwang, as part of our tradition in this House, this is a main business on our first day in any particular session. In the normal flow of things, by 2:35, we should already have gotten to this particular order, Mr. Speaker. But as you have already pointed out, it's been an extremely somewhat troublesome afternoon, Mr. Speaker. There have been challenges, so to speak, things which need not be canvassed on the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, matters such as dressing and things like those, Mr. Speaker, or even on how to behave as a senator in the presence of the chairperson and to colleague senators. The reason why we are moving this particular motion, Mr. Speaker, is perhaps so that as SBC, we can move business to this House so that members can make themselves as busy as possible, transacting business that makes the lives of the citizens that elected us to this House better, Mr. Speaker. It's extremely troubling, Mr. Speaker, if we continue to gather and all for 2 good hours or 1.5 hours, Mr. Speaker, there's nothing of note that can be recorded as having been transacted before this particular House, Mr. Speaker. It's extremely troubling. It's not what we expect of our colleague senators, especially the new senators, that for one reason or the other perhaps are struggling with matters which, when you observe perhaps the seniors of the House, are things that you hold dear as dependent on the traditions and the customs of this House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to urge my colleagues that we quickly dispense off with this motion. We have nominated our colleagues to serve separate from those that are there by dint of office, Mr. Speaker, as has been listed in the motion. There are other 7 senators that have been nominated from both the minority and the majority side, Mr. Speaker, to meet and agree and set forth with the business which this House shall be transacting, Mr. Speaker. This is now the business end of your term in Parliament, Mr. Speaker. While you may have been excused for many of us in the first 3 months of our session of this House, for either by 2:30 the House rises, by 2:30 we open the House, Mr. Speaker, and by 4 o'clock, for lack of business, we find ourselves at the House either for quorum or for any other reason. The House is forced to rise, Mr. Speaker. The same cannot be tolerated anymore. As Senate Business Committee, we shall approve as many business as possible in terms of bills, motions, and any business that is expected of us as a legislative arm of this country, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that we do and transact business, same and in tandem with what you individually promise and what we corporately as an institution have promised to the people of Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I look forward to an engaging afternoon each and every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday as we begin this particular session, Mr. Speaker. I want now to listen to ordinary Kenyans speak through their representatives of the challenges that they continue to face and how we can make their country better, Mr. Speaker. Thus,
I thought the majority leader is moving a motion. What's your point of order, Senator Fatuma?
Mr. Speaker, Senator Wambua, you have no right to abuse me. No, you are not the Speaker of the House.
I thought I have
Point of
taken
order.
minutes time to talk to you, but clearly we aren't listening. Now, honorable senators, don't make the second session bumpy and difficult. Because going forward, and from what I'm seeing, we may have to go the straight and narrow jacket. Where leniency will never be the case. We just apply the standing orders as they are. When a member stands on a point of order, you interject, you'll be asked to move out, because that is a disorderly conduct. Please, honorable senators, let us conduct the business of the House as per our standing orders. Proceed, Senator Fatou.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm rising on a point of order that there is no formal communication to this House that Jubilee has left Azimio coalition. Number two, I have seen the list has been changed and Jubilee is not properly represented in the House business. Based on that, I am objecting the list that has been read here to serve in the House Business Committee. I thank you.
Honorable Fatuma, immediately this motion is moved, senators will have an opportunity to debate. At that juncture, kindly rise and raise the objection. I will kindly hear you. Proceed, Majority Leader.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I was actually almost concluding the moving of this particular motion, Mr. Speaker, where I just begged to indulge my colleagues and remind them that Parliament consumes about 38 billion Kenya shillings annually in terms of budgetary support from the Exchequer to run this House and to keep all our business and affairs properly minded. That is money that would ordinarily have served Kenyans in other duties. It is upon us, it's incumbent upon us, Mr. Speaker, to come to that realization that that amount of money needs to be put to good use. Whether it is in committees, it's in time for Parliament from 2:30 to 6:30, and any other parliamentary business, Mr. Speaker, this is now the beginning of actual work. And remember, Mr. Speaker, as per the dictates of our Constitution, Article 94 on the establishment of Parliament, Article 96 on the establishment of a Senate, Mr. Speaker, it is upon us now to live up to the constitutional expectation of Kenyans so that we ensure that we represent counties properly, their interest, pass legislation that supports what ordinary Kenyans want to see in us as their leaders, and transact business that is meaningful to them, Mr. Speaker. It is my sincere hope, Mr. Speaker, that as we put together this committee, that is a business that we shall be considering on many afternoons. I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to a time where we shall have proper debates. By the time a policy document, whether in the form of a motion, a bill, a policy paper, finds its ways to the floor of this House, Mr. Speaker, members can be properly informed of the same debate, engage each other, and finally we make a decision in the best interest of Kenyans, Mr. Speaker. There is no more excuse, even for the newest of members, Mr. Speaker, to say that we are yet to learn. I think 3 months for a good mind is enough for you to learn. This is a time now to get down to business and ensure that we do things that are beneficial to our country, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, I want to urge members to participate, sit in your committees. Mr. Speaker, we'll be quick even to note that there are many committees, and each of you members in this House are members of various committees that have got bills that are being transacted at various stages. From tomorrow, if this motion, Mr. Speaker, is successfully carried, Mr. Speaker, we shall be transacting business and requesting for bills to be debated. We expect that by the time we come to debate any particular bill, if for no other reason, Mr. Speaker, other than maybe a committee is being slow, there is no bill that we shall transact in this House without having a report of a committee, unless there is a very, very good reason, Mr. Speaker, and it will take the convincing of the entire House to know why they are being asked to process and move forward with a particular bill without a committee concluding on its report. Therefore, there is a lot of work, Mr. Speaker. This is a month of February. We are handling BPS in various committees. Members and stakeholders of public are coming to present before the various committees on the various budget ceilings and proposals. I expect members to be busy in the House, Mr. Speaker. This is not the such kind of time, Mr. Speaker, now for people. I believe people have toured every corner of the world for those that wanted, and the excitement should now be dying out. Even if it's traveling outside of a country, Mr. Speaker, let it be when it is extremely necessary, Mr. Speaker. This business of competing, people changing bags at the airport from one trip to the other, Mr. Speaker, needs now to be a thing of the past, Mr. Speaker. Actual work needs to be done, and most of it, Mr. Speaker, for all intents and purposes, and those who've been in Parliament long enough know, is done actually in the country. There's hardly anything extremely useful that you can say you learn outside the borders of East Kenya. You know, Mr. Speaker, and the truth must be said, we must challenge ourselves as Parliament. This is a time to tell each other the truth. On most committees, you'll find them exhausting their foreign travel budget, but leaving a deficit, or not actually a surplus, Mr. Speaker, in their local travel budget. What does that say, Mr. Speaker? They say that we only speak about Marsabit, we only speak about Isiolo, we only speak about Lamu, Kisumu, Kericho, the various parts of the country in this house. It cannot be, Mr. Speaker, that you are a senator in the Republic of Kenya, yet you cannot even place certain towns of this city because all you're busy with, while you cannot get lost, for example, in New York, you'd struggle even to find your way to Rumuruti from Nanyuki town, Mr. Speaker. That cannot be excused. Let us find meaning in traversing this country, listening to the needs of our citizens, Mr. Speaker, engaging them where they can easily be found, which is back in Mashinani, Mr. Speaker, as various committees, issues that continue to arise. I said this during the induction, Mr. Speaker, and I repeat the same to our colleagues, that we are Parliament. People respect us. When we speak, Kenya listens. It cannot be that Kenyans continue to complain about various issues without us as committees of Parliament responding to them. This is a time now, Mr. Speaker, to summon the various ministers, Minister for Energy, and take them to task. Let them file a plan before this House and explain up to when will Kenyans continue to pay the high cost of electricity bills, Mr. Speaker. And the various promises, you can think about it in terms of any departmental committee, Mr. Speaker, for which we have ensured, at least as a leadership, that each member belongs to a particular committee where they can exert their influence and ensure that they do service to country, Mr. Speaker. This is a straightforward matter. I don't wish to be long on this particular matter, Mr. Speaker, but I do urge my colleagues that let us get down to business. We shall be judged either to have succeeded or failed, depending on how we execute in the next few months that are ahead of us, Mr. Speaker. Looking forward to a properly engaging session as we do the best for our nation, Mr. Speaker. With those very many remarks, I beg to move and request my brother, the leader of minority, to second this motion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Asante Bwana Spika. Bwana Spika, nataka kuunga mkono yote yaliyosemwa na ndugu yangu kiongozi wa walio wengi, Senator Aaron Cheriot, kama kiongozi wa walio wengi. Bwana Spika, kitu cha kwanza ni kwamba nataka kuwashukuru sana maseneta ambao wako hapa hivi sasa. Wale maseneta ambao wako katika hii list, wale 7 ni maseneta ambao wamechaguliwa na upande ule mwingine, na hata upande huu wa walio wachache pia nao wakachagua wao. Nikiangalia hii list ya hawa maseneta 7 ni kwamba ni watu wako wamejukumika, ni watu wako na taaluma tofauti ambazo wataleta katika kamati ya Senate Business Committee. Kitu cha kwanza ni kwamba nataka kuwapatia ongole na ya kwamba ni watu ambao wamekamilika kisawasawa. Tukiangalia kuna Ibrahim Ali Roba ambaye alikuwa gavana. Kwa upande mwingine dadangu Veronica, yeye ni wakili mkubwa. Ndugu wangu Hillary, wakili pia ni wakili mkubwa. Dadangu Tabitha ni mtu mwenye taaluma kubwa sana ndani ya nchi yetu ya Kenya. Na mamangu Senator Agnes Kavindu pia akiwa ni mmoja wa wale wenye taaluma ya juu sana. Na vile vile mwenye Haji Mohamed Faki akiwa wakili mkubwa, na Edwin Sifuna vile vile akiwa pia ni mmoja wa wale mawakili waliojitambulisha wa juu sana katika Kenya. Bwana Spika, tu kuongea kidogo ni kwamba Bwana Sifuna kama unavyoelewa alikuwa ni mwandishi mkuu katika chama cha ODM na amefanya hiyo kazi kwa hali ya juu sana. Nataka kumpongeza na vile vile kwa kuja katika hii kamati ya Senate Business Committee. Vile vile ni kwamba yeye husema ukweli, lakini zingine hasira zikizidi ni kama za binadamu. Na tunasema kuna samaki mmoja kule kwenye maji anaitwa mkizi, ambaye wanasema hasira za mkizi zingine zinakuwa faida kwa mvuvi. Lakini hapa tumeona ya kwamba amejitambulisha kama seneta mshupavu. Bwana Spika, tuko na jukumu letu kubwa ni kwamba sisi
Senator
tunaona
Fani,
wale
ni nini hoja ya nidhamu yako?
Singependa kumtatiza ndugu yangu Seneta Mazayo, lakini msemo ambao ameutumia hapo haufai kutumika kabisa. Hawezi kusema hasira ya mkizi furaha ya mvuvi, yani hasira za Seneta Sifuna ilikuwa ni furaha kwa spika. Haiwezekani kwa hivyo. Kwa hivyo huo msemo haifai hapo alipoutumia, haufai kutumika hivyo. Asante Mheshimiwa Spika.
Minority Leader, is that what you meant? Indeed, if that...
La.
Okay.
Tena kubwa sana la. Bwana Spika, vile vile nataka pia kuwaweza kuwahimiza ndugu zangu maspika maseneta wenzangu ya kwamba majukumu tulio nayo ni ya Wakenya, na litakuwa jambo jema ikiwa hivi sasa muhula huu wa pili ambao tulienda katika hii induction ama kujifunza ama kuweza kufunzwa na kupata taaluma za juu zaidi, ili tukiweza kuja hapa, ndugu yangu Cherargei yuko pale akiwa na yeye pia ana taaluma ya hali ya juu, ili hao wengine pia nao wawe na taaluma kama Cherargei, ya kwamba katika hii kamati itaweza kuleta mambo mazuri ndani ya bunge la Senate. Bwana Spika, vile vile ningependa kusema ya kwamba sisi tukiwa hapa tunatakana kuonyesha ama kuiga mfano mwema. Mfano pengine wa kusikitisha ni ile mifano ambayo tumeifanya hivi leo, ambao Bwana Spika ameshatoa uamuzi wake na tumekubaliana, lakini ni kwamba nidhamu ni kitu muhimu. Na sisi tukiwa hapa kama maseneta, tukiwa watu tuko katika nyumba ya juu, nataka tubaki hapo hapo juu kuliko ile bunge la kitaifa. Ninakumbuka ule mhula wa kwanza ambao tulikuwa na wale wengine ambao walikuwa maseneta pia. Walikuwa na tulikuwa na ndugu yangu Daktari Boni Halwale na Aaron Cheriot pia alikuwa hapo. Lilikuwa bunge la hali ya juu sana na lilikuwa linaheshimiwa Kenya mzima. Vile vile pia sisi tunaweza kuwa namna hiyo na tukaheshimika. Lilikuwa bunge, ukiangalia hapa alipoketi ndugu yangu Boni Halwale, Gigi Kariuki alikuwa anaketi pale. Alafu pale pengine alikuwa anaketi Kiraitu Burungi. Kule kwingine kulikuwa unaketi Mutahi Kagwe. Kwa hiyo upande huu wa walio wengi ilikuwa kuna misingi ya watu ambao waliongoza Kenya na waliweza kuleta mafanikio mpaka hivi leo tunajiona tujikuta hapa. Kwa hiyo Bwana Spika, tulikuwa pia ukiangalia kwa upande mwingine tulipoanza, tulikuwa katika garage nyingine kule ya KICC. Tukiwekwa katika mahali pengine kama Tundu, ilikuwa hatuwezi kuketi mahali kama hapa. Lakini kwa nguvu na juhudi za wale waliokuweko mpaka tumefika hapa, ni jambo la kujivunia kama Senate. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka kuambia ndugu zangu, tuko hapa tulete mageuzi ndani ya Kenya ili Wakenya wapate vitu muhimu ama maisha yao tuyaletee afueni. Kwa hiyo mimi nataka kusema kwamba ninaunga hii ripoti, naunga haya majina yaliyoletwa hapa katika Senate Business Committee ili tuweze kupata mafanikio kama maseneta na pia tuweze kufanyia kazi wa Kenya. Asante Bwana Spika.
Senator Honorable Senators, I now propose the question. That pursuant to Standing Orders 190 and 199.3, the Senate approved the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who shall, pursuant to Standing Order 191, should be the chairperson of the committee. The Senate Majority Leader, Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Ali Ibrahim Roba, EGH MP, member. 2, Senator Veronica Maina, MP, member. 3, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, MP, member. 4, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, MP, member. 5, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama, MP, member. 6, Senator Munyehaji Mohamed Faki, MP and member, and 7, Senator Edwin Watenya Sifuna, MP, member. Honorable Senators, you may now proceed to make your contributions, starting with Senator Manzo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me an opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution of Business Committee provides an opportunity for the House to be able to plan its business and execute for the benefit of Kenyans and to be able to serve Kenyans appropriately. Mr. Speaker, I must commend the Senate for being very efficient, and I must commend you as a Speaker for having handled Senate very well, and being a symbol of unity of this House. I must say that my experience from the National Assembly was very different in the last 10 years. It was very difficult to get even an opportunity to contribute on the floor of the House, out of the many numbers. And in fact, if that happened for a very short while. While in this House, Mr. Speaker, you are able to express yourself, to represent your people, to lobby for resources for the counties, and the job for Senate is so serious, such that we are handling devolution in the country, and a lot of development activity is happening through the governors, and the survival of the counties purely rests on the division of revenue bill and how senators support the counties to have resources to be able to function. So this House is very important, and its duties are very important when it comes to devolution. It has also, given hope to Kenyans that development is able to reach every part of the country, irrespective of your political party or affiliation, because the governors are there, they are elected, and their support heavily relies on this House. Again, Mr. Speaker, this particular list prepared enables the political parties to be represented accordingly, and each side of coalition makes its own decision as to its membership. So it goes back to the leadership of the coalition and the instructions thereunder and the discussions to make sure that each coalition is properly represented. And I believe, Mr. Speaker, this is going to be very useful to the country. There could be, only 7 senators together with the House leadership. Each one of us may want to serve in that particular committee, but at times it is good to give a chance to others also to serve in that particular committee, and this opportunity is accorded by respective coalitions as envisaged in the Constitution, the constitution of political parties in respective coalitions. And therefore, I believe, Mr. Speaker, it represents part of the Senate, those few members taken there. All of us cannot sit in that particular committee, and the few who sit there represent us. I believe the list provided is very well balanced, of very experienced members of this House, very respected, and I'm sure are going to do a good job for the benefit of devolution in this country. The Senate is very, very important under the 2010 Constitution. It has shown a lot of maturity so far, and I believe we are going to do better. And finally, Mr. Speaker, the future leaders of this country are in this House, including you, Mr. Speaker. Kenyans are watching us and what we do, and they are watching the qualities displayed here. I must thank Honorable Halwale, even for very good debates inside and outside the House. And even on this other side, the Honorable Wambua, the leader of minority, have shown a lot of maturity in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I support.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think from the onset, the House cannot proceed with any matter until and unless the Senate Business Committee, as per Standing Order 190, is in place. And I think many Kenyans and people who are following the proceedings should know that this is a very important motion. It's an important business of the House because it cannot move. Mr. Speaker, mine is just a few comments. Even as we proceed with Senate Business Committee, my appeal is that we have so many statements, motions, and bills at times, Mr. Speaker. And sometimes the committee chairs or number of committees chair, the Senate Business Committee should assist through the liaison, which I think the Deputy Speaker is the chair or yourself, so that when statements are being brought, the response to the statement, it is the tradition and respect that all these individuals should be communicated, Mr. Speaker. If, for example, it is the Senator of Mombasa, then that committee, if it's about lands, Mr. Speaker, they should not proceed without the consent. And Mr. Speaker, even the standing orders have allowed virtual sitting, and therefore sometimes you find chairs and committees proceeding without the input or satisfaction of the committee, of specific committee chair, Mr. Speaker. Even the motions, Mr. Speaker, and I agree with members that have said, sometimes motions are being called, statements are being called, bills are being called. I don't want to say my colleagues are busy with other things. They are also busy serving people. But I think what you should teach your people is also your business to transact, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes in the order paper, as per Standing Order 45, 43, 41, sometimes you find a statement that it's overstayed, Mr. Speaker, longer than the ordinary ugali that is eaten in the morning when it's cooked in the evening, Mr. Speaker. So I think we need to agree as colleagues. Mr. Speaker, it is of the interest and saving time of the House. If you are a member and you cannot make it to move your motion, your bill, your statement, kindly indicate to the SPC or even through the Speaker's office or the Clerk's office so that you don't waste the order paper and time of the House, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think we don't have a specific implementation committee, but I want to appeal to Senate Business Committee that they should be following up some of the committee reports, resolutions that we make, Mr. Speaker, so that it does not end up to gather tasks, Mr. Speaker, in most of our offices, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my only concern to also Senate Business Committee, and I note with a lot of respect that we have many people who are serving in this committee, Mr. Speaker, that a number of them are very senior people with experience. But, Mr. Speaker, you can find there is a fire outbreak in somewhere I've seen in Aberdare. Let me not say here in Nairobi, somebody might read mischief. What is happening in Aberdare is burning. For example, Mr. Speaker, it could be accidental or coincidental. Why should we wait for 14 days or 7 days to get a response, Mr. Speaker? So I want to ask Senate Business Committee, when they sit, if it is an urgent matter, Mr. Speaker, at least bend your rules and allow, if that matter has been brought on a Thursday, Mr. Speaker, order even a progressive report by Tuesday. Say that if it is an issue of emergency, we can be able to deal. We become alive. We don't behave like morticians who are coming only to do postmortem if it is something that the Senate can be on it. And I want to appeal to committees, Mr. Speaker, to be proactive. I've seen a number of them, but don't also go to bed with clients, Mr. Speaker. I've seen some committees are excited, they want to be proactive, but in the end of the day, they interfere, and some cases they go to bed with the clients, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, curiously to note, on the majority side, we don't have a problem. Curiously to note, and my brother, Senator, in my concluding remarks, Senator, my very good friend and minority leader, who we look up to because of his seniority. Some serious names are missing that were there, and I think it was not fair for people to serve shortly in the session, like Minority Whip, Senator Fatuma Dulu. These are people who have experience. I think she has served for almost the entire life of the Senate, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, if there is any section, and I want to appeal to our colleagues, Mr. Speaker, Section 14 of Political Parties Act is very clear. If somebody has resigned in a political party, there is a procedure. What I'm appealing to minority side, just follow the rule of law. You have been going to public rallies and other incidents telling us respect the rule of law. Why should we come and bend the rule of law and you want us to believe? And that is why I'm happy people like Senator Mudhama are in this Senate Business Committee, because we need that experience, Mr. Speaker. So I think even if, Mr. Speaker, even Martin Luther Jr. King said...
Senator Chirange, are you in support of the motion or you opposing the motion?
Mr. Speaker, I think I said curiously in the beginning of my statement. I just noting, Mr. Speaker, I'm here to conclude.
The question asked you,
yes,
neither yes or a no. Are you
Mr.
supporting
Speaker, I'm here
the
to
motion?
conclude so that I can conclude. I'm just coming to that. Just maybe 3 minutes, 1 minute, sorry. Mr. Speaker, that's why I was saying, let us follow the rule of law. The way we have been told, even you, Mr. Speaker, you have read, I don't want to say riot act, but you have given direction that we must conduct our business through the rule of law, respect, fidelity to rule of law. And that is why Justice David Maraga said in the ruling of presidential petition in 2017, Mr. Speaker. So if some names are missing because of political witch hunt, Mr. Speaker, then it should not be allowed. We cannot be the House, Mr. Speaker, that it is being used for vindictiveness, Mr. Speaker. And we should respect women leadership, Mr. Speaker. Women leadership must and should be respected. We cannot allow harassment of women leaders in this House for political convenience. Mr. Speaker, finally, is that on our side, I think a number of our colleagues are serving, and I don't have a problem with them. They are a seasoned number of them, like Ali Roba, is a former governor, just like yourself, Veronica Maina, who is our studious. And we believe in women leadership, Mr. Speaker, is the Secretary General of the ruling party and ruling coalition. That is how we treat our women. And he's a very senator and sits in the Speaker's panel where we work closely. Senator Wakili Rari Kiprotich Sigei also is a ranking member and the chair of Justice, Legal Affairs and Human Rights. And Mr. Speaker, it is to note that he was once on record when I was being harassed by Uhuru Kenyatta and Matiang'i those days, Mr. Speaker. You know, there is no police station I've never slept in Kenya. And he was one of my lawyers on record. I had approached Senator Mahanson then, but because of political interest, he feared appearing on record for me. But I thank Senator Okongo Mugeni and Senator Hillary. So these are people that I've known and they are very efficient. Mr. Speaker, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, of course, very new senator, nominated senator, but catching up very fast. And I think that is what we want to see. Mr. Speaker, finally, is also to appeal to House leadership. And Senator Wambua, I don't know why he's looking at me suspiciously. To appeal to the House leadership, let us rotate. I would wish to see Senator Oburu Odinga serving in the Senate Business Committee and giving us experience, not only locally, but internationally, like from Tanzania. So, Mr. Speaker, those are some of the... I think Senator Ledama has sat long. I think he has been serving in Senate Business Committee. My brother, Senator Eddie Okech, is on learning curve. And I want to advise him, don't run too fast. In politics, you need to consult. Mr. Speaker, I will look when it comes to voting. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Senators, let me give guidance on how we debate this motion. And more particularly for those who do not want to take time to read the standing orders. Standing Order 199-2. Whenever motion for approval of a list under paragraph 1, okay, that is the committee, the Senate Business Committee, is provided for under Standing Order 199-1. So Standing Order 199-2 states as follows. Whenever motion for approval of a list under paragraph 1 is moved in the Senate, no objection against the proposed membership of a senator in a select committee shall be permitted, and objections, if any, shall be formulated against the proposed membership as a whole. So what does this mean? You cannot debate to object to just a single name, or two names, or three names. It's either you reject the entire list or you support the entire list. So please stand guided accordingly. Senator Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to also support this motion and say that the Senate House Business Committee is the heart of this Senate. Without it, Mr. Speaker, we cannot even commence our work here as senators. And that is why it is the first program to be executed before we do any other thing. And therefore, it is a very important committee. And Mr. Speaker, you realize it is one of the two committees where you are the chair. And therefore, that signifies the importance of the Senate House Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, all I would also want that in future, maybe we need to consider amending the standing orders so that we have proper linkage between the Senate House Business Committee and the Liaison Committee. Why I'm saying that is because then it will help us in processing enough business for this House to debate. I am a member of the Liaison Committee, and we have raised that concern and say that maybe we need to consider having the Deputy Speaker, who is also the chair of the Liaison Committee, sitting in the House Business Committee so that he's the link between the Liaison Committee, where business is being processed, and the House Business Committee. The other thing is, Mr. Speaker, I served in the House Business Committee of the National Assembly for the entire term of 5 years. And there are a lot of things I learned there. One of the things I learned is that being given an opportunity to serve in the House Business Committee is a big privilege. And therefore, the people or the members who serve in that committee must be members who are ready to demonstrate that they are capable, they are members of high integrity, and they are members who are going to keep secrets, because a lot of secrets are going to be discussed in that meeting. And looking at the list that it's before us, I have no doubt that the members who have been selected by the respective parties have the ability to perform the role as members of the House, the Senate Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, I had an opportunity to, about 2 weeks ago, to visit the Senate of Nigeria. And I noticed a lot of things that this Senate can borrow from, especially on the conduct of the Senate House Business Committee, the equivalent. And the Senate is respected in that country because of the way the members of the House Business Committee behave, interact, and generally the way they conduct themselves. So I think there are a lot of things we can borrow from other jurisdictions in the Commonwealth that can help us to make our House Business Committee operate and instill good virtues in our members. We have seen today what has happened in this House. It is not one of the things that you would want to see as a senator, because when I was in the National Assembly, I had a lot of respect for members of the Senate, because it was more a house of reason, a house of mature people. But gradually, Mr. Speaker, I think we are degenerating. And the House Business Committee, which you chair, will help us in getting back to where we have been, getting back our space. And I know the members who have been selected are members who are capable of ensuring that Senate remains a house of reason. Mr. Speaker, I think members serving in the House Business Committee they serve there on behalf of the parties. And they serve there because the parties have decided that those are members who can protect their interest. Those are members who have fidelity to the party, loyalty to the party. And I think there should not be any question about this. On the minority side, we have made changes. And the minority leader will, at some point, talk about this. And, Mr. Speaker, we have made changes because we want to have members who are going to represent us, who are going to promote our interests. We have decided as a minority that we have a serious agenda to achieve, Mr. Speaker. And this is not a time to allow irritants to stop us from implementing our agenda, effective from this session onwards. So, Mr. Speaker, we have made changes, and the members we have chosen are up to the task. Senator Mudhama and Senator Sifuna will represent us effectively in the Senate Business Committee, and we fully support them. Mr. Speaker, you cannot have your cake and eat it. You cannot announce in public that you are moving from this coalition to another coalition and come to the chamber and expect that things will not change. Things will certainly change. Mr. Speaker, for those few remarks, I support.
Senator Cheptumo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. And Mr. Speaker, initially I held the view that the liaison committee is more superior than the House Business Committee. Actually, I used to say it's the cabinet of the House. But Mr. Speaker, looking at the standing order, 190, 4, it is indeed true that this is the apex committee of the House. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the composition of the membership, you as the chair is our speaker, and all our House leadership from the minority and the majority side, and the other 7 members. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to add my voice and support this motion and say that this committee plays a critical role. In fact, it can actually decide to even postpone in the business. It's very powerful. Mr. Speaker, in the National Assembly, in 2 terms I served as a member of this committee. And I can stand to really state that it's a very, very important committee. And for the short time we have been in this House, I think this committee has also done a good job. And I want to believe that as they proceed under the new leadership, the new membership, they are going to continue to do what they are supposed to do. Mr. Speaker, I want also to say that the impression we create with the public, and Mr. Speaker, our proceedings are live. So whatever transpired today in this House was seen by the public, by our sons, our daughters, and even those who aspire to maybe join politics in future and serve the nation. I want to agree with you, Mr. Speaker, that beginning this session, you need to apply the standing order strictly, because when you do so, Mr. Speaker, there will be order, there will be discipline, so that then we sustain the respect of the House. Mr. Speaker, we've had this issue of this House being a lesser House. We've taken the view and the stand that it's a upper House. It can only be agreed upon, Mr. Speaker, even by the public, if we conduct our business in a very mature manner. And so, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as you sit as a committee, it is important that you apply fairness so that matters that came forward, whether bills or motions or statements, should actually be approved in that order. When I was in the other house, Mr. Speaker, sometimes you can get a matter which is controversial, and the House Business Committee does not tell the member. And so a member waits for this to come forward, it doesn't appear, and so on. I think a transparent way of doing your business, Mr. Speaker, is important so that any member having a bill or a motion, if there is any challenge, it should be notified so that it's not able to, so that it's not delayed without him or her knowing why there is delay. So fairness is critical. And Mr. Speaker, I believe that this second session of the House, and as we move forward, we are going to move together. Mr. Speaker, I like the engagements going on. The issue of people in this other coalition moving to the other one. Mr. Speaker, we are in a country of freedom to express yourself, to belong to a political party of your choice, to belong to a coalition of your choice. And I think once the procedures are followed, we let us not condemn people who make choices to belong to certain coalitions. And Mr. Speaker, it doesn't matter whether you belong to which coalition. What Kenyans require is for us to think as a house, debate as a house, deal with matters as a house, not as coalitions. Because, Mr. Speaker, this is an assembly of elected senators of the Republic of Kenya. It is not an assembly of elected members of Kenya Kwanza or of ODM or Wiper. It is an assembly of elected, nominated members, leaders of this country. And Mr. Speaker, I want to agree with you, and you are our leader. Anybody attempting to undermine the authority of that office where you sit, Mr. Speaker, should be dealt with. And I think your addition to tell Sifuna, Honorable Sifuna, to leave the chamber was in order. Not only for him, but for all of us, Mr. Speaker, so that then we have order and we gain our respect as a house. Mr. Speaker, I support.
Senator Enoch.
Mr. Speaker, I thank you for this opportunity to also make a contribution to this motion. From the onset, let it go on record, Mr. Speaker, that I am in support of the senators that have been nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee. A lot has been said about all these senators, and I don't need to repeat, Mr. Speaker. I'm in total agreement that the persons named to serve in this committee are fit for purpose, and they will be able to execute the mandate of the committee in the best interest of this House and this country. Mr. Speaker, in support of this motion, I also wish to say two things that are important, two or three things. One, Mr. Speaker, I want to thank you for the way we have started this first day of this session. You have said that it's a painful thing to ask a member of the Senate to exit the House on account of disorderly conduct. But, Mr. Speaker, it is a good thing because it also sets us on the right footing as we transact business, real business, in this session. And, Mr. Speaker, there are examples to show for it, and I wish Senator Cherargei was here. I would have used him as an example. Since the last time, Mr. Speaker, that you asked him out, he has behaved very well today. So, Mr. Speaker, it's a good thing. Do more of these things. Even if Senator Wambua misbehaves, ask him out. Next time, I think they will behave well. Mr. Speaker, there is a second thing that I wanted to say, that at the beginning of this motion, when Senator Cheriot was moving this motion, Speaker, a wrong impression was created on my part. That when Senator Cheriot, the majority leader, stood to move the motion, it is my understanding of the standing orders, and I can be corrected because we are all learning every day, that when a senator is moving a motion, it is not right to stand on a point of order to raise an issue on the substantive motion because the motion is still being moved. You can raise on a standing order or a point of order to challenge something else outside what the mover is doing. So when I said that was premature, making reference to what my senior Senator Dula was doing, what I meant is it's premature to raise a point of order when a motion is being moved. I did not mean to refer to her as being premature. Mr. Speaker, you know me, these senators know me. I am not capable of saying such things about other senators. So that impression should be corrected. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I have heard senators stand here in support of this motion, but also questioning the names and the representation of political parties. Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, first of all, Jubilee as a party is represented in this Senate Business Committee by the whip. For the avoidance of doubt. Yes, we have changed a name belonging to Jubilee, but Mr. Speaker, one thing I want to congratulate and thank you for is that, Mr. Speaker, you will not allow yourself to be invited to preside over political party issues on the floor of this House. Your business here, Mr. Speaker, will be to moderate debate, call us out of order when you're out of order, and make sure that we make progress. Political parties and coalition of political parties will have to transact their business outside the floor, and least of all, they should never expect that the Speaker will preside over that business. The Speaker, the Jubilee Party, and I'm not here to discuss political parties, has made an expression of interest, and it is their democratic right to join the ruling coalition. They have a right to do that. And they are saying they are not formally out. They have just expressed interest. So maybe they may change their minds, maybe they will not, maybe they will go the full course. But, Mr. Speaker, for us in the Azimio coalition, we have also expressed an interest to disengage with people that are not loyal to our cause. So, Mr. Speaker, if Jubilee has decided to express an interest to work with the party that has sponsored Senator Galwale to the Senate, it should be okay for the Azimio One Kenya coalition to express an interest to disengage with the irritants. When that happens, as Speaker, it should not come to the floor of this House. We called a meeting, the Speaker, as leadership, to decide on the names that will serve in the Senate Business Committee and brief them properly. Because this time round, it's not going to be business as usual. We needed to brief our members properly. The Jubilee members belonging to the Azimio coalition for now did not turn up. The Speaker, it is not in our business to force people to belong where they don't belong. And when we remove them from committees, Mr. Speaker, I want to put it on record that the fourth schedule Standing Order 238-3, Senator Boni Alwale. There are 14 standing committees. In the scheme of things, Mr. Speaker, Jubilee members have been assigned committees by the Azimio One Kenya coalition. Going forward, we shall rethink that position, and where they are going, they can be assigned committees and serve there if that's what they want. Mr. Speaker, with those many remarks, I support.
Senator Boni.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support this motion. As others have said, it's an important motion, and ordinarily, once this motion is moved by the majority and gets the backing from the leadership of the minority, it quickly becomes a point of convergence and calls upon us to remain brief so that we can discharge the business. However, because of what has transpired this afternoon, I wish to make a few comments. The first one, Mr. Speaker, is that yes, on our side, the majority, we have not changed the names. We had reason to do so. And on the side of the minority, changes have been made. I am confident that the leadership of the minority did the necessary consultations to arrive at these changes. And if such consultations were not done, that should not be expected to be solved on the floor of the House. And even if one wanted to achieve the same, it is not possible, because the motion that is being moved is the motion as it is with the names as stated. Mr. Speaker, Senator Wambua is very loud and clear about his expectations on his side. Allow me, Mr. Speaker, to assure members of Jubilee, should it come to pass that you will leave the minority side and come to the majority side, I'm ready and willing to assign you responsibilities in various committees. You will be warmly received. You will enjoy the same privileges, if not better, than you are enjoying on the other side. Mr. Speaker, I also want to thank the minority side. The minority side in the last session, they have taken issues blow by blow. They have supported the things they were convinced they needed to support and opposed when they had to. If we carry this maturity to the current session, Mr. Speaker, I'm confident that we will help the House Business Committee to discharge more business for us for the interest of the public. Mr. Speaker, 3 points. The first one is that we must get business going, because, Mr. Speaker, we have inherited a country that is faced by serious problems. As government, we have inherited a country that is facing severe insecurity in the Rift and in the north of the country. We need to fix it, and it's only this Parliament that can give the necessary infrastructure. We have inherited a country that has a total economic mess. It requires a lot of fixing. The President has proposed even budgetary cut-downs so that we can see how best to get the economy going. The President is very loud, and correctly so, that all Kenyans must pay taxes. Mr. Speaker, I remember with nostalgia President Mwai Kibaki. He was also very clear and firm that companies, people, small and large, should pay taxes. We did so, and we turned the economy. It's just a matter of time. If companies are going to pay taxes, we will turn our economy for the interest of the minority and the interest of the majority. And that's where we want to take our country. Mr. Speaker, we have inherited a country that the government has left the education sector in total chaos. Mr. Speaker, they have even introduced a program called the CBC. I make it a point to do spot checks all the time in my county. And when I talk to the teachers about CPC, Mr. Speaker, the teachers tell me they don't know this thing. When I talk to the parents, Mr. Speaker, the parents are telling me we cannot afford. Mr. Speaker, when I talk to the students and the pupils are saying, especially the primary school children are saying, Mr. Speaker, that we don't know. I don't know whether I was number 1, number 2, number 7, or number last. Where was I? So I asked them, what is the problem? He says, me, I used to beat Maria. Now I don't know whether Maria did better than me or so on. So this confusion requires time. And I want to encourage the special committee that His Excellency put in place, led by Professor Munavu, my lecturer of the University of Nairobi, to be firm and realistic and make recommendations that will deliver our children to the dreams of their lives, and not decisions that are going to help some business people who thought they could make a quick kill through the education sector to make an extra bag. Mr. Speaker, as we go into this committee to bring here business, I want to draw it to the members of this House that if we are not going to be very serious, somebody is starting to think that Senate is not up to it. Mr. Speaker, one of the cardinal bills this House is supposed to deliver is the Division of Revenue Bill that decides how much money will remain with the national government vis-a-vis the devolved structure. Mr. Speaker, it should not surprise any senator who has refused to follow current affairs that somebody is starting to think that we are not doing it. If the governors were confident that we can do this job of division of revenue, why would they be disturbing the deputy president in meetings of IBEC, asking the deputy president that they be given more money? Why would they go further and also disturb the president when they know that the division of revenue is our responsibility? The National Treasury is saying it can only give 480 billion. The Commission of Revenue Authority, which is our technical arm, not the technical arm of the executive under this constitution, is saying you should accept 407. And the national government through Treasury is saying, the National Treasury is saying 380. The Commission of Revenue Allocation is saying 407. And the governors want 425. This conversation should not be taking place at State House or at retreats chaired by the president. Those conversations are supposed to take place in the Senate through the Committee of Budget and Finance, so that the National Treasury can come and state its case, CRA the same, the Council of Governors the same, and then our committee will inform this House and we shall decide how much money we shall allocate to the division of. So we are allowing ourselves to look like we are irrelevant. We are looking like we are not up to it. I look at some of the governors. I respect them. Some of them are my younger brothers. But they have no idea how revenue is divided between the two levels of government. They are walking in corridors, going to see the chief minister, going to see the minister of finance, going to see the deputy president, hoping that they will get an access to the president. That is not the way. Let them talk to us. That is our job. They cannot take away our job and they go in funny meetings, in funerals, and saying how it is them who get money to go to counties, since when and how. Mr. Speaker, I want to conclude by speaking to the last point. The last point is what has transpired this afternoon. Mr. Speaker, I beg you, you're my younger brother, and I've worked with you for many years. Do not allow this Senate to be defined by the immaturity and excitement of just a few potatoes. Mr. Speaker, I saw you pained on how you would speak to the issue of menstruation that was being canvassed on the floor of the House. It should never happen again. We know that our girls are suffering because of the challenges of poverty due to menstruation. But at the same time, Mr. Speaker, we also have Kenyans who are suffering because they don't have toilets. So are you going to expect a male senator to come here having defecated on himself, walking on stool, to show that people don't have toilets at home? Would you tolerate him? You cannot. And let me tell some of these young senators, we will not allow you. We are not going to be demeaned collectively. We'll call you out. Mr. Speaker, I recall, and that time you were with me in the National Assembly. A young member of parliament came very excited to the House one afternoon. You were there, I was there. In tatters. He came with rags of clothes looking like a chokora. The sergeant at arms tried to throw him out. The guy struggled. He was playing to the gallery in the streets here that they will say, we have elected an MP who goes to the House in rags like us and therefore is representing us. He did it. He was thrown out the way you have thrown out Senator Gloria. And that member of parliament, whose name I wouldn't wish to mention here, has tried to win an election in Nairobi. He has even changed constituencies. The voters who he thought he was representing and impressing have said no. If Gloria wants to begin a career in politics, she will have to do it differently. And I appeal this to all of us. I look at a mama, Senator Mama, like Kavindu, that what must have been going through her mind when she saw her own daughter doing what she was doing. We shouldn't allow that collective embarrassment to colleagues. Mr. Speaker, I am glad that in the National Assembly, you have a strong legal mind. And in this House, you are equally a strong legal minds. Let these two houses converge so that where the National Assembly is right, we support. We don't fight them simply because we want to be seen to be the upper house. A lower house can have an upper idea. And an upper house can have an inferior idea. The reason will not be because the house is called lower and the other one is called upper. It is because if the members of parliament in the upper house have inferior ideas, the inferior ideas will define the upper house, and there's no way it will outshine the lower house. If the intention is to picket, there is room for picketing. If she had asked me, Mr. Speaker, I would have helped her how to picket on the same thing. I got her in the corridors. I'm a doctor of medicine. I pulled her to Senator Dulo's office that please change. She told me, no, I'm going to show them. If she wanted to picket, Mr. Speaker, she would have bought a ribbon, very well designed, and the ribbon she would have won. I would have won one ribbon for her. Several of us would have won to send a message to our children that we care. The ribbon would have been written on, support the poor children who have challenges during menstruation. People must behave with decorum. If they are not prepared, let them resign and go away. And I can assure the Secretary General of UDA, as your chief whip, oh, she's around, thank you, madam. As your chief whip, I will insist that you direct me and I help you. I direct you, you help the president, you help the deputy president to cease this embarrassment so that people we nominated must know that we sweated for those positions that afforded them a chance to be nominated. I support.
Senator Dulo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from onset, I reject this list. Number one, we have been elected to represent people of Kenya in this House. We have a democratic right to belong wherever we want to belong. Number three, this is a House that is guided by the rule of law and procedures. And as I've said earlier, there is no formal communication on the floor of the House to effect changes to the list that was there 1 week ago to House Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, it's not your position to discuss matters of political parties here. But I think as the head of this institution, you have a right to give guidance as far as political parties are concerned and guided by the rule of law. And I know, Mr. Speaker, when we made our way to State House, it's not by mistake. Yeah? We knew what we were doing. We know the consequences. But the law must be followed to the letter. This is my 4th month having been elected to the opposition side. And this is my 3rd term to serve in this House. I have even served in the House Business Committee before. The list that has been presented to this House this afternoon was doctored this afternoon without proper consultation. Mr. Speaker, as a person and as a leader, I am really tired of the forced marriage. I am tired of intimidation. I am tired of abuse by certain quarters of this side. And I'm not fearing anybody, Mr. Speaker. But what we really want is the law to be followed to the letter. We were in Azimio. We've been actually debated on this floor of the House that Jubilee contributed nothing to Azimio. Shame on you, those who are saying that. As Isiolo County, and I've kept quiet on this for a very long time, Isiolo County has a governor, a senator, women rep, all the members of parliament are from Jubilee Party. And we contributed to Azimio. Yeah? Since I was given actually the leadership position, there is abuse, there is intimidation, this is our seat we should take. You can take for all I care. Yeah? But take it. We have taken. You can take. But the law must be followed. And we will fight as Jubilee that our rightful share in this House must be given to us. Mr. Speaker, I know even the PSC position that was taken away from us as Jubilee, and we are the 3rd largest political party in this House. It was actually wrong, it was falsehood, it was intimidation, it was harassment, and that is how that position was taken away from us. And unfortunately, that day I was not here. But I'm saying, enough is enough. What happened actually to Jubilee has never happened for the last how many years? We are ready to walk that path. But me personally, as Fatuma Dulo, elected by Isiolo people, for the 3rd term I'm serving in this House, I will not allow intimidation. I will not allow abuse. I will not allow harassment. I will not allow, name calling, Mr. Speaker. And I'm requesting you as the head of this institution, we have a right as Jubilee. We must be given our rightful share as Jubilee members in this house. We must get a ruling where Jubilee should sit, where Jubilee should be actually positioned. Because Professor Kamar is a very senior member of this house. In the last Senate, she was a deputy speaker. For her to be nominated, it doesn't mean she's a lesser member of this house. There was a reason why she didn't go for elective position. But today, it's embarrassing because Senator Kamar went to State House. That's the reason why she's removed from House business. It's wrong to have a double speak. When the president went to Luo Nyanza, the people who are dancing and celebrating and calling all the praises to none other than William Samoei Ruto are ODM members. And they have taken goodies from this government. We are being told, oh, that was the visit to Luo Nyanza. Which visit is better than the other? If they are going to discipline those who went to State House, they should start with the governors of Luo Nyanza. Mr. Speaker, I'm winding up. There's no need of point of order, Senator Osotsi. Those who are dying for the whip position, you can prepare yourself and take that position. Even the committee members. But I am appealing to you, as an elected member of this house, and having served my third term in this house, I would expect you, Mr. Speaker, sir, to give a ruling that Jubilee should be recognized in this house as a political party that has the third largest number in this house. Having said that, we don't regret to have walked to State House. We will walk even right now if we want. But thank you very much. We have democracy. We are elected by people. Sometimes we have to look at the people who elected us, not the matters of political parties. We have experienced where nominated walked out of political parties in the last Senate. Nothing happened to them. They served their full term. I can walk out of this house to be just a member who is representing Isiolo County, and I'm so proud of that. I am elected as a second term member of the Senate, having contested with more than 7 men in my county. I'm so proud. So thank you very much. I oppose this list. It's not properly represented. You can take even that whip position. I don't care. But the rule of law must be applied. You are a legal mind in this house, and that should be done properly. I thank you.
What is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, I hope you have listened to the damning revelations by the Minority Whip, Senator Fatuma Dulo. The clarification I'm seeking, not a point of order, Mr. Speaker, is that Senator Dulo has stated that in his own record and answered that the list that we are discussing was doctored. For neatness and integrity of the House processes, Mr. Speaker, can you give guidance on how we should proceed if it is true, as Senator Dulo has alleged, because of his political affiliation or working with the president and going to the State House, which anyway, State House is a public office, Mr. Speaker. What should we do in such situation where a member who sits in a very leadership position comes and reveals those statements, Mr. Speaker, as ordinary members of the House, we take it seriously. Just the way if Senate Minority Leader today or Senate Majority Whip would make such statement, Mr. Speaker, and say the list was doctored. And therefore, for neatness of the process, Mr. Speaker, I request that you give us proper direction so that when we put SBC in office, we should have absolute faith. And I want to urge my colleagues that want to bring politics of rallies, they should allow Senator Dulo be. This is not the first time we were intimidated in Jubilee when Uhuru Kenyatta and others were there. Now Senator Dulo is working with the president, and State House is where everybody can go, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, if people want to work with President William Ruto, they can work. And Mr. Speaker, surprisingly, Azimio One Kenya Alliance leader, Raila Odinga and Kalonzo Musyoka have told governors to work with the government of the day and William Ruto. What is wrong for Senate Minority Whip, Mr. Speaker? Senator Dulo working with President William Ruto, Mr. Speaker. What is wrong? What is so special that she's being frustrated, Mr. Speaker? And I want to tell Senator Dulo, don't be intimidated. It looks like Azimio One Kenya lands are looking down upon women leadership, and we shall not allow it to happen.
Senators, if a senator is on a point of order, you don't have to shout on a point of order, because I won't yield. The standing orders are very clear. So, and that's why I'm insisting, why don't we read our standing orders so that we can have a neat engagement in the Senate. Now, allow me to address myself to the matter raised by the Honorable Senator Fatuma Dulo. Honorable Senators, allow me to invite you to Standing Order 190, where the Senate Business Committee is constituted. Now, the Senate Business Committee comprises of the Speaker, the Majority Leader, the Minority Leader, the Majority Whip, the Minority Whip, and 7 other members. Now, the 7 other members, it says who shall be nominated by the parliamentary parties. And therefore, it's assumed that when the list comes to the Senate, the political parties have sat and nominated. What is left to the Senate is merely to approve or to reject the whole committee. Now, Honorable Senator Dulo, I'm not aware of any dispute between you within the Azimio. If indeed there is a dispute, kindly bring it forward. And at that point, I'll be able to make a ruling. As it is now, I'm not seized of any dispute. I've not received any letter to the contrary. So kindly be guided that if you feel aggrieved, and indeed there's a dispute between Jubilee and the other constituent parties of Azimio, do write the relevant correspondence to me, and for sure I'll be able to make a ruling in that regard. But as it is now, it is assumed in the absence of any registered dispute that indeed the list that has been tabled before, coming from the minority and coming from the majority, must have gone through the processes of nomination. So then the Senate cannot be dragged unless moved by a dispute within your coalition. Let's proceed that one. Senator Eddy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise to support this motion because, as we all know and as has been stated by everyone here, this is the most important committee for this House. The running of this House, as is the running of other committees, select committees of this House, are definitely determined by this particular committee. Above that, I want to register that the second session that we are going to have, given how we have started this session, will be critical to have some more ambitious, more ideological, more organized, and more dispassionate engagement. I say this because I've listened to our elders speak. I listened to Elder Aluale, who, with a lot of respect, was tempted to make what I would call an ageist comment. An ageist comment because if you think about the behavior of some members of this House who happen to be young and they have behaved in an inappropriate way or an inappropriate manner, in both sides of the House, Mr. Speaker, I see wonderful senators who are equally young. I've had the opportunity to work with Senator Thangwa from the other side of the House, who is an amazing individual and a very well-leveled elder leader, and he's young. I've had the opportunity to work with Senator Tabitha, who is equally extremely talented, very passionate, very organized, and above all, committed to the function of this House. And she's young. I've worked in this other side with Senator Sifuna, who, by all means possible, is qualified even to be in that list and has always been very keen and pays attention to details, and he is equally young. I've worked with Senator Ezena, who is also very passionate about issues of the North, has advanced a lot of courses in the course of conducting businesses that regards the people who are marginalized in the North, and she is young. So I would want to urge us as we start the businesses of this House to not be lured into these ageist comments. It will be critical that this particular committee finds ways of weaving conversations that can make us a House that sees women, youth, any racial, all tribal communities as being able to contribute to this House. Mr. Speaker, I've also listened to the comments that have been made by a few members who are discontented with the agenda that the changes that we have had might have targeted some people, especially from the majority side, or minority side. My heart bleeds, Mr. Speaker, when I listen to those comments, because the sanctity of this House is measured by how well we are alive to Article 27 of the Constitution. Article 27 of the Constitution invites this House to be able to ensure that in every dealing that we are having, we must ensure equality and we must ensure freedoms of all Kenyans. We are not here in those committees just to serve our parties. Our parties are mere vehicles that we used to get to this House. But the essence part of why we are in this House is because we have been employed by our bosses, who are the people of Kenya. If you read Article 27 of the Constitution, sub-Article 4, it clearly states that we shall not have a state that both directly and indirectly discriminates upon the people of Kenya. And where discrimination can be able to happen very easily in this kind of House is in writing the businesses of this House. You can be tempted to directly or indirectly discriminate against the people of Kenya by the agenda you bring in this House. And it has been said, Mr. Speaker, that the both sides of the House, both majority and minority, represent certain aspirations of our people in different ways. It cannot be that some members of minority, who for whichever reasons that best fits them, have chosen to cross to the other side of the House, whether directly or indirectly, and then seek to still sit in the Business Committee. Mr. Speaker, we will be indirectly having more voices and having more agenda of the majority side represented in the Business Committee. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, I want to advise, maybe some people might see that we are young. We have also taken time in this House to go through answers the answer of this House that do show a number of events that have gone on through this country and how the House businesses of this country in different parliaments have run. Mr. Speaker, there used to be a time in this country that as simple things as the budget writing process of this country used to be dictated by the State House. And my elder, Honorable Alwale, who is also the majority whip, will tell you that it used to happen that the technical teams in the Treasury will devise a budget, write it, without even these houses ever having to have the input in those houses. In fact, my sister who has just stepped out, Senator Dulo, knows very well that one of the reasons why Isiolo County ranks as a marginalized community in this country is because the State House, under the executive orders that forms the section paper number 65, number 10 of 1965, came from State House, and State House indeed forced some counties in this country to be considered as non-performing counties without any input in our economy, to the extent that today Article 204 of our Constitution is all dedicated to deal with issues of marginalization. It is extremely important, Mr. Speaker, that as we start the business of this House, both members of both sides do understand that the independence of Parliament, and more so the independence of the Senate, that some of us are agitating for, is extremely critical for the advancement of your own people, just as is for the people that you perceive are from the opposition side. And as I finish, Mr. Speaker, in the same manner that I want to advocate for the independence of these houses from the executive, the idea that development comes from State House, the notion that has been propagated in the last 1 week in the media by members joining different parts of the coalitions. I also want to say that the Constitution of Kenya is very clear about the arms of government. And these arms of government have got an absolute demonstration of what we call their seat of power. For the executive, the biggest symbol of the executive is the presidency. And in the presidency, Mr. Speaker, one of the symbols that makes us admire the presidency as a people of Kenya, admire the presidency as a symbol of national unity, admire the presidency as that place with ultimate authority to be able to unite as a nation, is the State House. If today Kenyans go to demonstrate or to picket in State House, I don't know what the majority side will call that. We will say the authority of the State House is gone. It will be anarchy. It will be the symbol of that authority that we call the judiciary is indeed our courts. If today we could allow our citizens to go and picket or to go and demonstrate inside any of our courts, then the authorities of the courts cease to exist. And lastly, Mr. Speaker, these houses of parliament, that is the National Assembly as well as the Senate, the symbol of the seat of power of these houses, the authority of these arms of government lie within this particular house. It is very unfortunate that we can even laugh about or even administer a small punishment as just having a senator sent out of the house for coming to picket within this house, for coming to demonstrate, because that was called demonstration. It's nothing less than demonstration within this house. Mr. Speaker, in my own understanding, that is equal to somebody taking this mess out of this house and taking out the authority of this house. I want to urge you, Mr. Speaker, that help us, and as well as the business committee that we're putting together, help this House to be able to remain an authority that is enshrined within the Constitution by not having this House being reduced to some businesses that are indeed enshrined in the Constitution but have got boundaries within where they must happen. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I want to say that as members of Parliament, as the majority leader had insinuated before, we had our time to go for holidays, we had our time to relax, we had our time to have Christmas, to celebrate New Year. Some Kenyans, Mr. Speaker, did not have even the opportunity of having Christmas. Some Kenyans did not even have opportunity of celebrating New Year's. Not because they did not want to, but they did not have the means and the privileges that we do have in this House to celebrate those that we celebrated. Therefore, we must get back to business and make this House possible to avail equal opportunities for Kenyans to thrive than just surviving. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, as I support this motion.
Thank you, Senator Chirange. What is your intervention?
Mr. Speaker, looking at the mood of the House, indeed, Senate Business Committee is very critical, and I presume as per the tradition, you might need to meet because tomorrow the business of the House has to be given out. Mr. Speaker, it's in order to request that we can go for voting by the standing order so that we can proceed, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
Unfortunately, Senator Chirange, having contributed to the motion, you are not the right person to move that point of order. Maybe another senator would move such a point of order. Wafula Wakoli.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I just want to reiterate what my senior brother said. Due to time constraints, allow me to say a word that this country is in turmoil. This country needs a lot of panel beating, and issues being raised about consultation, about partisan positions in the House. I want to request, Mr. Speaker, that we have one thing called Senate Business Committee, not Azimio Business Committee. And I want to request that for the reason that we elected, we stick to this agenda of Senate Business Committee. So I want us to proceed and vote and allow this committee to continue with its work. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Senator Wakoli, you cannot rise to contribute and then shut other members. So we'll consider you as having contributed, and therefore you cannot be the one to move that point of order. Senator Nduati, what is your point of order?
Mr. Speaker, sir, I rise first of all to support this motion and to seek that the mover of this motion be called to respond so that if we have to move into voting, we can proceed on with the voting towards this motion.
Honorable Senators, allow me to put the question that let's dispense with that point of order. Let us be guided by our standing orders. A point of order has been put across. Let's dispense with it. The point of order is that the mood of the House dictates that the mover be called to reply. So let's dispense with that. And that's why I'm going to put the question to the honorable senators, that having... Can I hear you correctly, Senator Veronica, please?
That the mover of the motion to be called to respond to the motion.
Senators, can you walk in, please? Honorable Senators, the Senator Veronica Maina has, on a point of order, has reason to seek that we allow the mover to reply. And I'm going to put the question. Having read the mood of the House, I do now call upon the mover of the motion to reply. As many as of that opinion say aye. Aye. As many as of that contrary opinion say nay. The ayes have it. Majority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to appreciate members who have taken time to contribute. This is not a matter to be agitated to, especially my good friend Senator Faki, who has had the opportunity to speak on very many important things in this House. Surely, if on one afternoon we ask that he forgoes a chance to contribute so that we can formulate SBC and dictate and generate business for the House to consider, I don't think it's too much of a ask for a senior colleague. I'd have understood if maybe somebody else who, for one reason or the other, said this is our chance to speak. Otherwise, Mr. Speaker, I appreciate the contribution of our colleagues. I know we didn't have a very good start to the session, but like they say, all is well that ends well. I think we've had a good ending, and members have spoken to this matter, so that SPC can quickly convene, set the agenda. Let's do that which Kenyans elected us to do, which is to represent them, to legislate, and to oversight. That ought to be our focus, Mr. Speaker. With those very main remarks, I beg to move.
Honorable Senators, pursuant to Standing Order 84-2, I do make a determination that indeed this matter does not affect counties, and therefore voting shall be by voice. And I proceed to put the question. The pursuant to Standing Orders 190 and 199.3, the Senate approved the following senators nominated to serve in the Senate Business Committee, in addition to the Speaker of the Senate, who, pursuant to Standing Order 191, shall be the chairperson of the committee: the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, and the Senate Minority Whip. 1, Senator Ali Ibrahim Roba, EGH, MP, as a member. 2, Senator Veronica Maina, MP, as a member. 3, Senator Wakili Hilary Kiprotich Sigei, MP, as a member. 4, Senator Maureen Tabitha Mutinda, MP, as a member. 5, Senator Agnes Kavindu Muthama, MP, as a member. 6, Senator Munyehaji Muhammad Faki, MP, as a member. And lastly, Senator Edwin Watenya Sifuna, MP, as a member. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable Senators, the members whose names have just been approved to sit in SBC, we shall proceed upon the rise of the House to room committee number 4. Immediately, the House rises. Honorable Senators, there being no other business on the order paper, the Senate stands adjourned until tomorrow, Wednesday, 15th of February, 2023 at 2:30 p.m. Thank you.